a discourse in Parshas Balak. It's Parshas Balak this week. And we're going to study... We're going to study on page 144 in Likutei Torah. This is an explanation on another Maimer, and as we had mentioned so many times, the explanations of the Maimarim of the Alter Rebbe are very Kabbalistic. The Alter Rebbe, I think the good mashal that I gave, someone liked the mashal, so I think that's why it's a good mashal. That when someone can take you on a ride in their Ferrari and you can enjoy the ride very much, it's a wonderful ride. That's the Maimer. And then when they open up the hood of the Ferrari and start showing you, tinkering exactly how the Ferrari is put together, that's the explanation on the Maimer. So unless you are a mechanic and you understand something about cars, you'd rather just go for the ride in the Ferrari instead of him explaining to you exactly what are the powerful engine and what kind of transmission and what kind of that this Ferrari is made out of, that you can have this pleasant ride in. The explanations of the Maimer are highly Kabbalistic. They're the underlying wiring that's behind the Maimer that was said. So the Alter Rebbe would generally say one Maimer on one Shabbos, and maybe the next Shabbos or on the same Shabbos later, he would explain it where he derived it in the Kabbalistic writings of the Arizal. So what is supposed to be an explanation is usually much harder, and you have to be a seasoned Kabbalist to have an understanding of what he's talking about. And being that I'm not a seasoned Kabbalist, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything of what I'm saying tonight. So that's just an introduction. So if you feel lost, don't worry, I feel lost as well. Okay, number one. But who knows? We've had many times that the Maimer kind of began to make sense. We did the dedication. We're holding now in just past that. The Maimer, so there's the Maimer's explanation of the Maimer. Now the Maimer that this is explaining, the Maimer that we're going to explain now by learning this deep Kabbalistic insight, is a very, very, very popular Maimer. It's an extremely beautiful Maimer, and we're learning the explanation on it that most people probably don't learn. The Maimer itself is a very fundamental Maimer, a very essential Maimer. There are two main beautiful concepts that the Alter Rebbe explains in that Maimer. One of the main things that he explains in the Maimer is what's the difference in the spiritual dynamics of our soul and our work in this world in the weekday, and how do we work on Shabbos. The main difference between the Jew in the weekday and the Jew on the Shabbos. And the Alter Rebbe explains that in the weekday we are called Yaakov, and on Shabbos we are called Yisroel. We're almost two different people. The nature of who we are in the weekday and the nature of who we are on Shabbos, and our influence on the creation and our job in the world changes dramatically between the weekday and Shabbos. Shabbos, we're a Yaakov Jew, which means we're a struggling Jew. Yaakov struggles with the world. We struggle, we fight, we work very hard. In addition to working hard in your work, of course, everybody works hard in their work and their business, whatever work you're working. That's hard work, but we're talking about a much deeper labor. The labor of redefining this world. The labor of elevating the sparks that are contained and embedded and stuck within the klipa. The avodah of wrestling with the forces of darkness to be able to take chunks and pieces of this world and sublimate them to holiness. That's very, very hard because the klipa is very difficult. So any kind of change, transformation like that takes exertion. But that's the avodah of Yaakov. But then comes Shabbos and we enter in a whole different world. Because the world of Shabbos around us is not a klipa-diga world. Shabbos, the whole world becomes holy. We become holy. The world becomes holy. We don't have to change anything. The Jew on Shabbos is meant to revel in godliness. That's what we're supposed to do on Shabbos. Revel in godliness. Delight in Hashem. There's a great influx of godliness that is showered upon our neshama. The worlds are filled with godly delight. Hashem is emanating powerfully on Shabbos. And the weekday he's concealing. On Shabbos he's emanating and shining and revealing himself. And as God showers the world with his powerful light and revelation, when God showers the world with his light and revelation on Shabbos, we experience exhilarating delight. So the real delight of Shabbos is not the delight coming from cholent and gefilte fish or kishke and chopped liver. That's not the real delight of Shabbos. The real delight of Shabbos is delighting az tesaneg al Hashem. We delight in God's light. There is a great sensation of elokus on Shabbos. And we're not meant to fix the world on Shabbos, because on Shabbos, two things happen. The world in general is in an elevated state, number one. And number two, we as Jews, our souls transcend creation, or transcend the very physical creation. We're in a higher place on Shabbos. And so on Shabbos, we're in a state of an aliyah. We're all in a state of elevated. The whole energy of Shabbos is an energy of aliyah, of going up higher and higher and higher. And in the weekday, the energy of the weekday is yerida. We descend down into the world to fix it. So that's the difference of why in the weekday we're called Yaakov, and on Shabbos we're called Yisroel. Because Yaakov stands for the word Yud Ekev. In the word Yaakov, you have the word heel. Ekev means heel. On Shabbos, we enter into the heels of creation. What's the heels of creation? The heel of a human body is the lowest part of the body, and it is the toughest skin. You know, your skin on your hand is very soft and sensitive. On the heel, on the bottom of your feet, at the heel, you have tough, dry skin. It's hard, it's tough. And it's very good that way, because if you would have very soft baby skin on your heel, it would hurt a lot. But because it gets tough and it's able to take, stepping on things or whatever, and it doesn't hurt that much because it's tough. As we translate that into existence, there is on Shabbat, in the weekday, we enter into those elements in the world that are very coarse, very tough, and lacking sensitivity towards what's real, towards Hashem. It's very, very, very dry and dead. We enter into the dead elements of existence, which is the physical world in general. It's dead. Meaning, what do we mean it's dead? It has energy, but it doesn't recognize its divine energy. It doesn't recognize that there's something godly to its life. When a human being thinks he's an animal, and there's no higher purpose to his life, and all he has to do is eat, drink, and have physical pleasure, and there's nothing higher, that means that you're dead, you're disconnected. Because you're not realizing that you are, what do you mean you? You're the image of God. You're created as a channeler of God's light into this world. This is what you amount to, just being an animal like a cow? But that's the way we feel a lot of times. We're just like, we don't feel our significance. We don't feel our importance. We don't feel our divine light. That's because we're entering in the weekday into the heel reality, into the heel realm, where everything is thick and coarse and desensitized. But that's where God puts us during the week. And what's the purpose? To do mitzvahs in that desensitized state. In that unholy state, we should do His will. Not only that, we should bring sensitivity into that which is insensitive. We should make the world around us, the stubborn physical world, and people that live within the physical world that have lost sight of their spirituality and of their godly self, we should enlighten them with a godly awareness. Our job is to make Yud Ekev, to bring the Yud. Yud is the first letter of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, to bring the Yud of godliness, which, as we're going to see soon, is the Chachma. Yud is not only godliness, but Yud represents the highest dimension of the divine name, of the divine expression, the most intense, the realm where godliness is pronounced to the highest, to the strongest, because we know there are 10 Sefirot. And the Sefirot are not God. The Sefirot are vessels where God's light illuminates and shines through and comes to the creation. But the degree of the divine manifestation in the Sefirot varies. In the highest Sefirah, in Chachma, Hashem's light is shining without any concealments. And that's why the recipient, the keli, the vessel, is in a state of total bittul, total nullification. That's why chachma means koach ma, the power of what? The power of complete self-effacement. The power of being, if you're living in a state of chachma, you don't even know you yourself exist. You don't even know you're experiencing God because all you feel is God, not you, not even the sense that you're feeling God. Because that too is already too much self-awareness. To be aware that you're now exhilarating and delighting in God's light is not chachma. Chachma is you're so lost in the emes of Hashem that you don't even know that you're there experiencing it. And then it gets dimmer and bina. Bina is already an understanding of God, but it's not God. It's not like chachma. There is someone understanding, but it's not chachma. And then the midos, the levels. Then there's midos, the emotional attributes. Those are already quite a bit lower. And then you get to malchus, where the godly light is diminished tremendously. But there's still, it's a sphere, it's an attribute. So there's still godly revelation. So there's godly revelation through all the spheres, but the most intense radiance of God is in chachma. And that's why chachma, yud represents the smallness of chachma. Chachma is ginormous. It's the biggest sphere from all the spheres. It's the Jupiter. It's the Jupiter of all the spheres, if you could say. But it's the tiniest at the same time. Like Moshe Rabbeinu was the giant of all human beings. The greatest human being is Moshe, but at the same time, Moshe is the tiniest human being because he was the most humblest. The greater you are, which means the closer you are to God, the more nothing you become. So Moshe is the ultimate human being and the ultimate nothing. So that's the yud of chachma. Now, here's the idea of a Jew. A Jew's neshama originates in the realms of chachma, in the realms of such total self-effacement, in the pure brightness of God's light. That's where a Jew's neshama originates. The power of the Jew, and this is our work during the weekday, is to channel that yud, that awareness of God, throughout all of creation. Lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, until we reach La Brea in Los Angeles, and over there cry out, Ein od milvado. There's nothing but God. See, it's one thing in the supernal spheres up there, way above there, but it's another thing to do it on La Brea, on Hollywood, on Beverly Boulevard. In the toughest, in the most self-oriented places. What's California all about? What's Los Angeles all about? It's all about my life, my car, my this, my that. Everybody's so into their own metzias, into their own existence, and their own happiness, and their own lives. Completely a society bent to it to be absorbed in its own existence. And when you can bring a sense of God over there and a bittul to Hashem over here, that's our avodah, yud ekev, to bring the yud down into the ekvayim, into the ekev, into the toughest, most resistant, most unholy places. It's so beautiful if we can live in Yerushalayim, in the old city of Yerushalayim, or places where there isn't all this coarseness. That too is good. Since it's physical, it's also, when you're in seminary also, you're in a different place. You're in school, you're in a different place. In yeshiva, you're in a different place. When you come home and you have to deal with a coarse environment. But that's your avodah. Your avodah is not to remain in that holy place. Yud ekev, to bring the yud down into the ekvayim. But it's a struggle, it's difficult, it's resistance, it's hard. Shabbos is a whole different story. Shabbos we're called Yisroel. And what's Yisroel? Yisroel comes, in the word Yisroel, you have the opposite of ekev. Which limb of the body can you find inside the word Yisroel? You have the word Rosh. Rosh means a head. If the legs, if the feet are akev, are resistant, are low and not sensitive and tough and dead skin, what is the most sensitive part of the body? What feels the most? The brain. The brain is so subtle, so tuned into life, so powerfully unified with the soul. The brain is the most sensitive. The most absorbing of the neshama and the most surrendered to the neshama is the brain. So on Shabbos, we elevate. We suddenly elevate. We on Erev Shabbos, we hop into the elevator. We hit the penthouse, and we go flying all the way up. We go into a whole different realm of existence, and we're not dealing with a coarse world. We're in a state of Rosh. And what are we supposed to do on Shabbos? We're supposed to deepen our connection of God and experience deeper light and a deeper pleasure in Hashem. That recharges our batteries. That recharges our sense of what's true and what's real. And what do we do then? Then we can bring what we've gained on Shabbos back with us to influence the world around us. And we do this every week. So that's why he says another inyan. Shabbos, we're close to Hashem, so we're like a child. Yisroel is called B'ni B'chori Yisroel. When we're called Yisroel, on Shabbos, we're Hashem's child. We become, and what's the job of a child? The child doesn't have a job. The job of the child is to be spoiled and to sit next to his parents, and I'm here. The light in the parents' house. I'm a child. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to pay to live here. I'm entitled. I'm a child. I can be close to you. That's the point of being a child. I deserve to become, just because I'm your child, I don't have to. But on the weekday, what happens? Hashem says, okay, you're my children. It's all about your Shabbos, you're close to me. But on the weekday, we no more B'ni B'chori Yisrael. We become Yaakov Avdi. We become a servant. And we know that the Jewish people are referred to in Rosh Hashanah by davening. We say, Im Kebanim, if we're like children. Im Kavadim, if we are like servants. So when are we called servants? What's a servant? A servant is supposed to do a service for his master. What kind of a service can you do for God? If God is complete, if Hashem is perfect with utter perfection, what kind of service can we do for Hashem? So the Alter Rebbe explains in the Maayon, the service that we do for God is by making the lower worlds a home for Him. That's the service. Of course, we can't add anything to Him, but what He desired is that He wants to have a home in the lowest realm, which means that what we spoke about earlier, the Akev, that which is the most disconnected from Him, should be refined and turned around and become a holy place, receptive for Hashem's light. That's our avodah. We do that during the week. We're called an Eved. And on Shabbos, we're Yisroel. That's the introduction. That's the main theme that we learned that's in the previous Mimer that we learned a whole bunch of years ago. Probably 8-9 years ago we taught that Mimer. And now, picking up from everybody's memory from 8-9 years ago when we learned that Mimer, we'll learn the explanation on the Mimer, okay? Now the Pasuk says one more thing I do want to say. How does this discussion come into Parshas Balak? In Parshas Balak, you don't have the mitzvah of Shabbos. This Mimer should have been in Parshas Yisroel, where it introduces to us 6 days you should work, and Shabbos you should rest. What's this Mimer doing in Parshas Balak? The difference between the Jew on Shabbos and the Jew on the weekday. Well, why do we talk about it? The answer is when Balak, when Bilam gives one of his blessings, meant to be curses but transformed into blessings, Bilam says, Lo Hibit oven be Yaakov. Hashem doesn't see any inequities in Yaakov. V'leira amal be Yisroel, and He doesn't see any toil in Yisroel. So you see, Bechlal, Bilam keeps on speaks about the Jewish people many times in the parsha. Yaakov Yisrael, another one. Matovu alecha Yaakov, Mishkaneisecha Yisrael. Mi mana afar Yaakov, umispar es roiva ben Yisrael. So you see, the whole time Bilam is talking about Yaakov Yisrael, Yaakov Yisrael. That's how his entire poetry of his blessing is all flowing with these two names of Yaakov and Yisrael. So the Alter Rebbe is going into the depth. What does it mean he doesn't see any inequities in Yaakov and he doesn't see any toil in Israel? So the main theme of based on what we spoke about before comes out like this. When it says he doesn't see any inequities in Yaakov means, inequities, you know what inequities, am I saying that word right? What's the right word? Iniquities? Iniquity. Okay. He doesn't see any iniquities in Yaakov. So what is the iniquity? What does it mean that he doesn't see iniquities of Yaakov? The iniquity means our avoda, our work during the week is to fight the klipa. Now, fighting the klipa, we can imagine that what's going to happen if you fight the klipa. We can only expect that the klipa is going to fight back. The forces of darkness are not going to take it standing down. When we try to blast them with light, when we try to blind them with powerful godly inspiration and infuse holy consciousness into an empty, desolate place, those snakes and scorpions that are there that are trying to keep God out are going to put up a fight. That's why we, by the way, find, we should know this, that every time you have a power, an empowerment in your life for something good, and you, especially when you want to influence others and you want to start doing something good in the world, you got to get ready for an onslaught, for a counterattack. Don't think the klipa is going to take it lying down. You're going to end up experiencing much more taiva, yetzahara. All kinds of things are going to hit you so strong precisely because you want to have a good influence. And you wonder, what did I do wrong? Why am I suddenly feeling this way? Well, expect that. Because when the moment you start shaking up, you start causing trouble, the unholy is going to fight back. So the pasuk says, "Hibit oven b'Yaakov," that they can't beat you. The iniquities can't overpower you, because Yaakov is more powerful. God gave a power to beat the klipa in kedusha. So if you just do your avoda of yud ekev, if you're megala your yud, if you reveal your power of your neshama, of chachma, of bittul to Hashem, if you dig deep into your soul during davening, and you open up your chachma of your nefesh, which every Jew has, you uncover the part of you that knows with absolute amunah, powerful straight, that who he is and there's none but him, and you make that shine in you, the klipa, it blinds the klipa, it blows them away, they can't fight you. But it's toil, it's a lot of difficult labor. There's no iniquities in Jacob, in Yaakov, but there is toil, because that very work takes a lot of work. Two things it takes work. To activate your chachma in the ekev, to bring the brain energy into the heels, takes a lot of difficult labor. And also, to make the world, the physical parts of this world, into kalim, into vessels for God, that takes a lot, because you have to change something. You have to change something. That's what an eved works, a servant. Yaakov is called an eved. If an eved is not exhausted when he goes to sleep at night, then he's not an eved. What's the point of an eved? The eved means he works for it, he works hard. He mamash exhausts himself, works and works until he collapses. So a Jew during the weekday has to work very difficult spiritual labor to change. So there is exertion, there is tired, you get tired. Lo hibit oven b'Yaakov, the klipa can't beat him. Can't beat the Jew, ultimately we win. But the Jew on Shabbos is not supposed to get tired. But when you are in your Yisroel state, even though everybody gets tired on Shabbos, right? So what is that? But it was a good question. But in any case, but that's the tiredness maybe still from the week. But the inyan of Shabbos itself is not supposed to tire you. Why? Because when you are Yisroel, he doesn't see any exertion. Because in Yisroel, when we enter into that state of existence of Yisroel, there's no fight. You're not fighting anything. You just, as we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the class, you're reveling in God's light. You're delighting in Hashem and the Shekhinah. And that's pleasurable, that's delightful, that doesn't tire us. So that's the meaning. In Yisroel, there's no amal. Now, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain this whole idea that I just explained in the micro, in the little human being down here below. The Alter Rebbe is now going to explain it in the macro. He's going to show, meaning, this change that there is in a Jew, these two elements in a Jew, there is the Jew in the weekday and the Jew on Shabbos, which means the dynamics of our neshama is different. And as we know, on Shabbos we all know we receive neshama yesera. What does it mean, neshama yesera? It means your Yisroel kicks in. That's why on Matzah Shabbos, there is a song which we sing in Zemiros by Malava Malka. There's a song that we sing Matzah Shabbos, and that is Altira Avdi Yaakov. Don't be afraid, my servant Yaakov. Why are we singing Matzah Shabbos? Don't be afraid, my servant Yaakov. And the answer is because on Shabbos we're not Yaakov. It's open. On Shabbos, and that is because on Shabbos we are not Yaakov. On Shabbos we are Yisroel, and we're a child sitting by our father's table on Shabbos. We're not a employee or a servant serving our master. It's a whole different relationship. But when it comes Matzah Shabbos, and a Jew knows that he's going to have to go away for a week and enter again into that dark dungeon full of klippas, full of darkness, full of stuff to slay the dragons, he doesn't want to do it. And he's scared. So we sing, Al Tira, don't be afraid, Avdi Yaakov, my son Yaakov. Another one more point I want to say before we start learning inside. When did Yaakov get his name Yisroel? When did Yaakov get his name Yisroel? After he fought with angels. If you take a look at Yaakov's life, you find in the beginning Yaakov is wrestling, he's a warrior. He's fighting. Take a look, your mamash see this idea is so beautiful. And it is so crystallized. It is so crystallized in the life of Yaakov. This idea in Chassidus is so beautiful. Because you see it mamash in Yaakov's life. You see Yaakov is a person, from all the others, he struggles more than anybody else. He mamash has to fight Yaakov. He's busy with Esav, his brother, who in the womb he's fighting already. He wants to kill him in the womb. He manages to come out alive. And then he has skirmish, and then in the end he has to steal the blessings. He has to deal with the other side. To extract something good, to get the blessings, or to get the Bechorah, everything comes with a fight. Everything comes with a struggle. Yaakov is the ultimate struggler. Then he goes to Lavan's house, and again he has to fight his way to maintain and to build his family. And he fights for 20 years. And then he comes out, and again he meets with Esav. And he has all the terrifying encounter with Esav. And on the way, when he's almost fighting with Esav, he meets a demon, he means the angel of Esav, and he fights with an angel. Yaakov Mamish has to go fight with a Malach. You hear it, Rabbi Yisroel? Yaakov has to go fight with a Malach. So he's fighting and he's struggling and he's wrestling and they're kicking up dust. It's a whole fight. Finally, after he wins the fight and he's the champion, what happens? What does Hashem name him? The Malach says, you're no more Yaakov, you're Yisroel. Because what happens in Yaakov's life after that? There isn't any more struggling with darkness. He has to deal with the loss of a child. That's a different kind of a thing. But he doesn't have to struggle with the world. He doesn't have to overcome anymore a force in the world that's trying to crush him. There is an Inyan, there is a Chisaron, there is a lack of Yosef. That's a different story. But he's not dealing with a wickedness that he has to fight. Because Yaakov had already beaten all the blockages, all the elements of concealments and of darknesses in the world. Yaakov had overpowered them. He made already a dira b'tachtonim. And that's the meaning, kisarisa, you have become a minister, you have prevailed im Elokim. What's the simple meaning of Elokim? It means with angels, with powerful divine beings. There is a much deeper meaning. Elokim is the source of all the darkness of this world. As we're going to see in the Mimer, where do all the Klippas derive their energy from? Where does all these three worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, fill with darkness? Until we get down to the lowest world where there's such dense darkness. It comes from it says in Eitz Chaim, it comes from 120 tzirufim, 120 combinations of the name of Elokim. There are 120 tzirufim of the name of Elokim. So with these combinations of the letters, Aleph, Lam, we know the name of Elokim is a filter. It filters God's light. When you make different combinations of it, you increase the filter. And the more you filter the light, it gets darker and darker, and it leaves room for Avera, for evil, for wickedness to exist. But Yaakov had overcome Elokim. He has gone past to the Eitz Chaim, it says that's the meaning of Tzalmaves. Gam ki elech, even when I go begay in the valley, Tzalmaves of death. So I saw in Etz Chaim, it says, Tzal Maves, Tzel, in the shadow of death. Tzel is 120. 90 and 30 is 120. Tzel Maves, it's the shadow, it's the 120 tzirufim of the name of Elokim that enable what? Maves to exist, death to exist. Forces of death to exist. But Yaakov has gone past the name of Elokim. You hear? Yaakov has gone past the name of Elokim, to go past that. Now watch this. There's another thing I saw from the Tzemach Tzedek. It doesn't say it here in the Maimer. The name Yaakov is Yud Ekev. Ekev is Gematria 172. 172 is the exact numeric value of 2 times Elokim. Because Elokim is 86. Elokim is 86. Now, I keep on saying Elokim because I can't now let us say with Hashem's name, but it's really with a hey, not with a kuf. So Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. So that's Gematria 86. 2 times 86 is 172. Gematria Ekev. Why? He says, V'yadaita hayom v'ashavoysa elovecha ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shamayim imal v'la'aretz mitochas. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, from here you see that the name of Elokim has an effect both in the earth below and in the heaven above. The concealment of the name of Elokim is both on Aretz and on Shamayim. So it's almost like there's 2 Elokims. There's Elokim above, which creates one concealment, blocks the Sovev Kalalman, what's called Shamayim. And there's Elokim below that blocks the Mamala Kalalman, the indwelling light of God to reveal itself. There's 2 forces of Elokim. And now Yaakov has, and our avodah is Yud Ekev. We have to bring the Yud, Yaakov's avodah, we have to bring the illumination of the Havaya, of Yud Kei Vav Kei, into Ekev. What's Ekev? The heel. The heel is the effects of the 2 Elohims, which are the 2 times Ekev. And over there, the 2 times Elokim, which equal 1 time Ekev. That's Ekev. And that's where, maybe that's the meaning of Ikvasa de Mashiach. Our avodah in the name of Ekev, in the bottom of the elements of Elokim, to blast through the filter with light, the barriers with light. Yud Ekev. How do we do that? We uncover the sparks of holiness that are there. How many sparks of holiness are there? Altogether, the amount of sparks of holiness the Kabbalists tell us that there are in the world that we need to sublimate and we need to elevate is 288. Reish Pei Ches Nitzutzin. I mean, we're busy with this from the world was created, from the sin of Chava, because the 288 sparks later splinter into a gazillion sparks. But the initial number is 288. The word Avdi, what's Yaakov? Yaakov is Yaakov Avdi. So the word Eved, what's our avodah? Our avodah is to take the whole idea of Jews being called an Eved, and the whole concept of Eved is to take physicality and the lower parts of creation and to turn them into a home for God. By doing what? By uncovering the spark that's in them, which means their utility, that we can use them for something holy. And when you do that, you uncover the spark and you make it into a receptive to God. And you can do that with anything. You do that with your hair comb or your hairbrush when you're using it with the right intentions. You can do that with food. You can do that with electronics and technology. When we use technology to spread Torah and Yiddishkeit, we're going into a place where a lot of it is being used in unholiness and a lot of Yetzer Hara, a lot of evil inclination over there, and turning that around for Kedusha, for holiness. Watch this. Eved, he says, is Gematria. Take the word Eved, it's Ayin Beis Daled. Eved is Ayin Beis Daled. Ayin Beis is one of the name of God. Daled means 4 times Ayin Beis. Daled Ayin Beis. So 4 times 72 is how much? Take your calculator. What? 288. There you go. So the whole inyan of Eved is to fix and to rectify and to elevate the sparks of the 288 sparks and be megala them. That's the avodah of Eved. But that avodah is tiring and difficult. He says later in the Maayon over here, it's the avoda of it's the real, what's called, any service, when we have to change something, is called avoda. But there's one thing particularly that in Hebrew is called la'abed. La'abed. La'abed is one of the malachas on Shabbos. It's called ibud. It's the work of a tannery. When you're tanning hides, to take a hide of an animal and to turn it into soft leather. What do you have to do? See, the animal hide is very tough, and it can't turn it into a soft leather or something. What you have to do is you have to bend it and bend it and bend it back and forth and work on it, step on it, and grind it, and again. It's an exhausting labor. But what you're doing is you're taking the leather and you're making it fine, refined. What happened when Adam and Chava sinned? They realized they were unclothed, and they gave them shirts of leather. What happened before they sinned? What was their shirt made out of? So it says that before that they were shirts of light. The word or in Hebrew is spelled leather is or, ayin vav resh. But before they sinned, it was aleph vav resh. They had a shirt. It wasn't a shirt of leather, it was a shirt of light. When the world got meaning physicality was light, full of light. But when the world coarsened, what happened? It became leather, became tough. Our avodah is to make the shirt of leather be back a shirt of light, to soften the leather, soften it till it's. That's la'abed, that's Yaakov Avdi. Now we all know that a tannery smells. It's the worst stench you can imagine. Sometimes we get beat up on ourselves why we smell, spiritually, from all the sins that we've done. To realize that life, we're working in a tannery. That's what we're working. God put us in a tannery in this world to fix la'abed and to work out and Shabbos, however, we know that one of the malachas you're not allowed to do is la'abed. You're not allowed to do boirer, you're not allowed to do ma'abed, you're not allowed to do this avodah. Ibudoires. It's difficult. But Shabbos is a day of delighting in God. Okay, once we know that, that's, again, a summary of the original Maayon. Now here the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that this difference that takes place in our neshama of us being called Yaakov or us being called Yisroel really has to do with a cosmic difference in the upper realms, in the Sfirot. Because the way God is running the world during the weekday is Hashem lowers himself down to be Yaakov Avdi. The Shekhinah descends down into the world in a manner of Yaakov Avdi. And on Shabbos, everything rises back into a higher realm of Yisroel. So till now, the Alter Rebbe explained it in the human soul. Now he's going to explain it in the cosmos, in the upper realm. So let's take a look inside. Biur pasuk lo Hibit in Yaakov. So he says, let's first investigate and research the root, the Kabbalistic root of the name Yaakov. Now we know, I wanted to explain one thing. You see, the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were physical human beings alive in this world, but they were really manifestations of pure divine lights. And they were just a mashal down here of something up there. So when we're exploring in Kabbalah, what does Yaakov mean? We're looking at Yaakov's origins in the source, in the supernal worlds. What is Yaakov? So in Sefer HaPardes, which is a book from Ramosha Kardovo, he has over there a part called Erkei HaKinuyin. Erkei HaKinuyin means where he basically goes through all these words and explains the etymology of these words according to Kabbalah. What are they? What is a boat according to a sfina according to the Kabbalah? What is a tree according to the Kabbalah? What is Avram? What is Yitzchak? What are names? What are these people in their spiritual dynamics? It's called Erkei HaKinuyin. Basically, it's a Kabbalistic dictionary written by Ramosha Kardovo, where he's defining things according like what they mean. So over there he explains, even though I looked it up, because he tells me in the back to look in Paradise, and I don't find it exactly in these words. But there he brings some other svarim that maybe it's... and there it says as follows, he says, Yaakov, where's Yaakov come from? It's a hamshacha, it's a drawing forth from the yesod. I've told you earlier, I warned you, this mimer is pure Kabbalah. A lot of, not pure, but a lot of it. It's drawn from the yesod element of Abba. Yesod Abba. Yaakov, the Yud, comes from Yesod Abba. What does it mean, Yesod Abba? Let's go slowly. You don't have to get scared, because these things are, we don't really understand them, but we can at least do a map we could do. Abba, father, is a term that is termed for Chachma. We know there are 10 Sefirot. The first of the 10 Sefirot is Chachma. Chachma is called father. Bina is called mother. Father and mother together, they create the children, which are the emotions. So Chachma is called father. Now, in Chachma itself, there are 10 Sefirot, right? Because every Sefira is an entire configuration. So Chachma has within itself Chachma of Chachma, and then it has Bina of Chachma, and so on and so forth. All the Sefirot, all the attributes are within Chachma. There is 10 Sefirot. There is 10 Sefirot in Chachma. So, now, if there's 10 Sefirot in Chachma, if there's 10 Sefirot in Chachma, so where does that, so Chachma also contains Yesod. Yesod Abba means the Yesod of Chachma. Okay, got that? Yesod Abba means, so we're saying the Yud of Yaakov's name comes from the Yesod of Abba. Now, if you're just learning Kabbalah, you're happy. But if you're learning Chassidus, you want to know, what does that mean? What does that mean in my life? What does it mean that it's Yesod Abba? Very nice. I can identify it's the Yesod of Chachma. That's where he comes from. But what does it mean? What it means is like this. Chachma, we said before, is the power of total nullification before God. Chachma is the power to be surrendered to God to the point that you don't even know that you're surrendered. You're so non-existent, so nullified in God's light. Koyach ma, the power of ma, of being completely absent in Hashem's revelation. Now, Yesod, that's Chachma. What's Yesod? Yesod is the power to bond, to connect, to transmit. The Yesod of every Sefira is the power of that Sefira to transmit that which that Sefira represents further. For example, Chesed is kindness. There is a feeling of kindness, but a lot of people are very kind, but they have no clue of how to communicate the kindness. It's an art unto its own. A lot of people have a lot of love in them, but they don't know how to communicate love, even though they have love. So Yesod is the ability to communicate something, to transmit something. That's why it means bonding. You're bonding outside of yourself. So Yesod Abba means the ability to bring Chachma outside of the realm in Chachma and transmit Chachma elsewhere. Good. Yesod Chachma is leaving Chachma, the inside of Chachma, and exiting Chachma to the outside. Where are you exiting to? Yaakov. What is Yaakov? Yud is the Yesod of Chachma. It's in Chachma itself, but it's not Chachma for itself. It's Chachma's transmission to the outside. Where to? Akev, into the hill. What's the hill? So spiritually, the hill means the three lower worlds. See, Atzilus is a world that's still completely holy, attached to God, one with Hashem. But then there's Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, the three lower worlds where Hashem is hidden and there's a lot of klippa and a lot of darkness, especially the Asiya, the lowest world. That is called Akev. Yud Akev is the ability for God's light to blast through, to bring consciousness of Hashem to the lower worlds. That's Yaakov. That's why, by the way, if you take the word Yaakov, and you can read another word into it, Yibaka. What does Yibaka mean? Oz Yibaka keshachar oirech. Then it will blast through like morning your light. What is that verse referring to? What does it mean it will blast through like morning your light? When does the morning light blast through? When? It's pitch black. It's as night can be. It's as dark can be. And suddenly what? There is a little bit of light. It's not a lot of light, but that first bit of light is so powerful. Why? Because the first bit of light poked through the darkness. And to be able to break it, once you break it, what happens? Eventually what's going to happen? It's going to get brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and there won't be any darkness anymore. It's going to turn to 11 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and all you have is a blue sky. What happened with all the darkness that was there dominating, crippling the world? There was such darkness. What happened? A little tiny bit of light blasted through. That little blast, that's very powerful. The power to blast through the darkness. That's the power of a Jew of Yaakov. We don't always see the effects. See, that's what we don't realize. This is crazy. Why is it crazy? I'm getting excited. Why is it crazy? What's crazy is that we live in our lives and we think we're good for nothings. We think we're not accomplishing anything. But we're not realizing that every time, you're not in the mood, you're in a dark place, you're full of like whatever. We all have our ughs. Everybody's gotten this yuckiness of sometimes you're not, you don't feel spiritual, you don't feel godly, you don't feel holy, you don't feel interested in mitzvah, you don't want to learn, you don't want to daven, you just want to lay in the couch and eat potato chips. Sometimes you don't even want to do that. Right? That kind of gloominess and darkness. But you don't realize that the little bit of bittul that you do when you force yourself to get up and daven mincha, even if you don't make it to shul, but you broke through that laziness and you davened. Broke through. That's dark. We're living in extreme paralyzing darkness. You broke through. A little light broke. You know what's going to happen? Eventually, that little blast of light is going to shine away all the darkness. Today, you don't see anything more than a tiny little glimmer of light. All you see is a little glimmer of light shining through. But that's the breakthrough. Take along, let's take this. This week we celebrated Yud Beis Tammuz. The Friediger Rebbe broke through. He's sitting in Kostroma, the greatest darkness, against the Russian monstrous government that says there's not going to be Yiddishkeit in Russia anymore. And he, in the midst of crippling darkness, says, I am going to put on tefillin today. And he tells them, you better bring me my tefillin. And they say, no, wait. And he fought and he hunger strike and they brought him his tefillin. So you say, what? One Jew put on tefillin in jail. Yes. Forward 70 years, and there's no Lenin, there's no Stalin, there's no thousands, there's no that whole idealistic world of Russia, of communist Russia, is gone, poof in the air. And what's there in Russia? Thousands of Jewish boys putting on tefillin, thousands of Jewish girls lighting Shabbos candles, a renaissance of Yiddishkeit, 100,000 Jewish kids learning in schools. From what? From one Yibaka, from one Yaakov Jew, Yud Akev. He blasts once you blast it, once you crack a wall, the wall will fall. There's a crack in the wall. That's our Avodah. That's Yud Akev. And that's what he's saying over here. Yaakov is Nimshach mi Yesoid Abba. He's the Yud is the Yud. It's coming from Yesoid, from Chachma. It's the ability to bring bittul and godly awareness into an unholy world and into an ungodly place. Now, he gets a little more technical. Hamalubish Bizah. I'm reading from the beginning of the Mimer on the top. I just started inside. As I said many times, this is the only place where you have an introduction to the class that lasts almost an hour. And now we're ready to learn. So, Hine Yaakov v'nimshach mi Yesod Abba. Yaakov is drawn from the Yesod element of father, from Chachma. Hamalubish, but that is enclosed bizah. Now, Zah is an acronym for Ze'er Anpin. So, what does Ze'er Anpin mean? Literally, it means the small face. The larger meaning of that is, it means, in the 10 Sefirot above, Chachma's father, then there's Bina, and then there are 6 emotions. They are called Ze'er Anpin, the small face of God. It's the combination of Chesed, Gevurah, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Those 6 in masculine attributes. Now, we're saying over here, Yaakov is who? It's the yesod of father. It's an element of chachma that's shining into Ze'er Anpin. Because really, you can all ask a question. We said Yaakov is chachma that comes into this world, into the Akev, into the lower world. But hold it. We always know, everybody knows, anybody learned a little bit of Kabbalah, anybody learned a little of Chassidus knows, that Avram is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gevura, and Yaakov is Tiferes. If Yaakov is Tiferes, how do we say that Yaakov is the Yesod of Chachma? Yesod of Chachma is higher than Tiferes. It's not Tiferes. The answer is, the Etzem Madrega of Yaakov himself, his essential level is Tiferes. But the power that's in him is a power from Chachma. The Yesod of Chachma flows, the blood that flows through the veins of Yaakov, of the Ze'er Anpin, Yaakov is the center of the Ze'er Anpin, is from Chachma. Uboikeya, but that's the whole point. Remember I told you, what's the power of Yaakov? It's the power to blast through, to enter a dark place. Yibaka, uboikeya. He blasts through, v'yoytze chutz leza. It goes outside of the Ze'er Anpin. And where does it go to? It goes into Malchus, but it doesn't stop in Malchus. Malchus is the Shechina, the mother of all three worlds, Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya. Where does it go down to? All the way down, Umizen Nasa B'chenas Yaakov. And this is where it becomes Yaakov. V'hu nimshach v'yoyred, and he descends. Yaakov descends down, down, down. V'yoyred, and he goes down. Bibia. What's Bia? An acronym of three words. Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. The world of creation, the world of formation, and the world of Asiya, the world of completion, which is the physical world. So Yaakov's light, Yaakov has the ability to go down to dark places and to illuminate. And every Jew is a little Yankel. And every Jew is sent to a different darkness to illuminate, to shine up, to light up. V'yoyred bibiyan, he goes down into Bria, Tzir, and Asiya. And what's his job over there? Levarer birurim. To refine refinements. What does that mean? As we said earlier, to find the godly potential and to wake up the godliness in every nook and cranny where the godliness that's in it fell asleep, where the entity and the being doesn't know that it is a creation of Hashem. It's like when we go to places, what is a Jew? What's your life all about as a Jew? Your life all about the Jew is to remind everyone that there is a God. That's your job. Physical people around you and even objects. You remind them that there is a God by using them for godly purposes. That's what that summarizes all that it is to be a Jew. We're sent into this world to awaken the world to the existence of a creator. We technically do that through the 613 commandments. That's it. So that's his levarer birudim, to go down and be mevarer birudim. Birure noiga. Noiga means the parts of the world that are elevatable. Noga is a klippa, it's a shell. But we know that there are certain very dark klippas that we can't fix. We need to push them away. But noga is the klippa that is elevatable. And when do we do that? There is a time frame. When do we do that? B'chol sheishes yemei ha'maisa. In the 6 days of creation, the workday week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's when this is our job. V'zehu pirish Yaakov. This is the meaning of the word Yaakov. Yud Ekev, Yaakov means Yud Ekev, Yud that goes down in the Ekev. Shenim shacha Yud. The Yud is drawn, Shehu B'chenas Yesod Abba. The Yud, which is the Yesod element of Father. Remember again, what does that mean? It means the ability to bring bittul. The Yud is the awareness of God. Yud Ke Vav Ke. You're bringing Hashem down. Where to? L'B'chenas Ekev, to the heel. Dahainu Biyah. The three lower worlds, Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, they're called the Ekev. Levarer Sham, to elevate over there, Birure Noiga. And again, Yaakov's life mirrors and reflects that. Yaakov goes down to Haran. Haran is a place that no one knows God. No one cares about God. It's an immoral, lowly place. That's what Haran is. And what does Yaakov do? He, from the Haronian world, he transforms that. And what does he do from Haran? He makes a Jewish family. And he takes all of Lavan's sheep and he changes them to be his sheep. Now they become Jewish holy sheep, used for good things. not used for whatever Lavan wants to use them for. That's the transformation. And now, why is, but he's now in the parentheses, he explains, why does Yaakov have that power? So he explains, Ki b'chachma is beridu. Because Yaakov, we said before, where is Yaakov tuned into? What's his shoresh? Where does he derive his what's at his core of his consciousness? What's deep inside of him? Where is he plugged into? Even though he himself is the Er Anpin, is the level of Teferes, he's receiving his vitality and his energy from the Yesod element of Chachma. That means he has the ability to transmit Chachma. And Chachma is what does all the Birurim. In other words, the Zohar says an interesting thing. The Zohar says, B'chachma is biriru. In other words, when I want to elevate this cup of water is mixed good and bad. When I want to elevate this cup of water, I have to shine into it a radiance of Chachma, and then it's elevated. What does that mean? I'm riding in the Chachma. I have to find within myself first an awareness of Chachma. What's my awareness to Chachma? My awareness of Chachma is my essential nullification to God. My recognition that God is and nothing else exists besides Him, that He is the reality of everything. Once I connect with that consciousness, and if I just davened for 2 hours and deeply meditate that truth, so when I pour a cup of water, it's impossible that this water will remain just regular water. Because the moment I'm holding it, I'm filling the water with a sense of purpose. I'm understanding and I'm appreciating that this is for the purpose of God. I'm absorbing this water into the bittul state. This water that what it once was regular physical water that could be used for any klipa, to use it for whatever, is now transformed to be used for kedusha. So when I apply chachma to something, I do a biur. I refine, I take out its good potential. Ki b'chachma is biridu, and Yaakov is attached to that chachma. V'ayim b'parshas vayishlach al pasik vayavek ish. Look in Parshas Vayishlach on the Maimer Vayavek Ish that we learned a couple of years ago, a fascinating Maimer. Be'inyan ki lo yuchaloi, where it says over there that he's not able to prevail over him. It says the Malach was fighting with Esav and he wasn't able to be victorious over him. And he says the reason is, why couldn't the Klipa beat Yaakov? Yaakov haina oras yesoid Abba. Because Yaakov has such powerful spiritual consciousness and such powerful awareness, because he has the Chachma shining in him. What happens is, when you apply that light to the klipa, what happens? The klipa it can't beat it. Ayin sham. It is explained elsewhere in the Maimer on the pasuk Vayavarech Yaakov. It says Yaakov benched Paro. So in that Maimer over there, he explained it, Ki Yaakov loy mes, because Yaakov didn't die. Why does Yaakov have such power to elevate, to bring redemption to this world, to elevate everything, to peel away the klipa and expose the spark of holiness that's in everything? And that's because the idea is as follows. Where does all the klipa come from in the first place? What's the root? How did we end up with such a mess? That's the ultimately. How do we end up with a world so disconnected and so in denial of its own truth? How does this world fall into such a crazy state? The answer is, so Kabbalah explains, because of the primordial collapse of the shattering of the vessels that happened, that God intentionally made it in a way where there should be a lack of cohesiveness or an incompatibility between the vessels and the lights, where the vessels were not compatible with the energy, and that caused the energy to break and to collapse. The vessels to collapse, and those collapsed vessels, they are the source of this brokenness that is within the world. The world is a broken world because it comes from the shattering of the vessels. Now it says in Kabbalah an interesting thing. Which vessels are we talking about? The 10 Sephirot. The first pair of 10 Sephiros, there's 2 sets of 10 Sephiros. The first set of 10 Sephiros collapsed. The second ones didn't. However, even the first pair, meaning the first, it's called Olam HaTohu, the world of chaos, where there was a shattering of the vessels. Now it says an interesting thing, that the shattering of the vessels were only in the 7 lower ones, which we learned a few weeks ago in a Maimer, is from Das till Yesod. From Das till Yesod, over there was a shattering of the vessels. But higher than that, in Chachma and in Bina, there was no collapse. And that's the meaning, that means, where does Yaakov come from? What's the shorish of his spirituality? See, in order to fix something, if you yourself are broken, you can't fix someone else that's broken. You can only fix something if you're to really. That's why we go to a tzaddik to fix us, because we know that tzaddik is not broken, and a tzaddik is able to do a repair in a person because he himself is not shattered. When like the sages say, right? It's the idea that in order to be able to fix, and as Chazal say different words, they say kshoit atzmacha, first fix yourself and then fix others. Right, like they say in the airplane, first put your mask on yourself, and then you'll put it on to someone else. So you first got to make sure that you're in a good place. So the idea over here is, the reason why Yaakov, the Jew, Yaakov, is able to fix everything is because he himself is from above the shattering of the vessels. He himself never shattered. Our neshamas never fell down in the shattering of the vessels. Everything else in the world is part of this brokenness, not our souls. Because our souls come from Chachma, and in Chachma there was no Shvira. And there's no breaking. That's the meaning where the sages say an interesting thing. By Yaakov, it never says in the Torah that he died. It says, Vayigva vaya'asav al amav. It says he was gathered into his people, but it doesn't say he died. And the answer is, Misa, death, is related to the shattering of the vessels. The first death that there was in existence was when those Sephirot collapsed. They're called, it says over there, the 10 kings that ruled. They ruled and they died. They ruled and they died. Each one, they're called Misa. Since Yaakov comes from a place above those Sephiros that collapsed, so Yaakov has it within himself. That's why Yaakov doesn't die. And that's why he's able to make that Mechaya Mesim. He's able to bring Tchias HaMesim from those things that are dead. Every time we elevate a spark, we're making Tchias HaMesim. We're repairing the death element. Yaakov was not in a state of shvira. From that place, Yored HaKoach Hazeh descends this power, lahalois hanitzutzim, to elevate sparks. The Inyan Zeh Kamoy Shekasa be'etz chayim or be'oitzer chayim, oitzeres chayim. This idea is stated in Eitz Chayim from the Arizal, oitzeres chayim. Sheyaakov nesakein, that Yaakov's neshama was corrected, was established, was made macharayim da'aba, from the backside of Chachma. Shaloi naflu bebriya, which never fell. Okay, Kabbalistic concept. That's what I said earlier. Chachma and Bina never fell, never collapsed. Elechein lo niskar behem misa. That's why it doesn't say by them death. It mentions 7 kings that died. By the kings of Edom in Parshas Vayishlach, it mentions 7 kings that died. But by the 8th king, it doesn't mention death anymore, because there was no death by him. Ubezeh Yisrin Malasai, and this is his quality. Al filu al b'chinazah. Yaakov, who comes from Yesod Abba, is even higher than the Ze'er Anpin itself. The Ze'er Anpin on its own, which means the 6 emotions themselves from Atzilus, they did fall, they did collapse. Shu klal is vav ktzav da Atzilus. Those are the general powers of the 6 sides of Atzilus. Shebehen hoyu shviras hakelim, and then there was the shviras hakelim. But Yaakov is not the 6. See, when we think that Yaakov is the Ze'er Anpin, he's not. He is the Ze'er Anpin, but he is in him, in Yaakov, is the light from much higher that's shining in the Ze'er Anpin, and that's his neshama. He's not the level of Ze'er Anpin by itself, because that's where there was shvira. There was a breakage. He's in the Yesod of Abba that's shining into the Ze'er Anpin. Over there's no shvira. V'hashta asa shapir. Now it comes at, well, the Biur hu alidei Yaakov. The Yaakov is the fixer man who fixes everything because he himself is not broken. In other words, we deep inside ourselves, all of us, have a very clean and crystal sharp awareness of God. Now our job only is to share that with the world, to share that with everything around us as Jews. However, now that was a parenthesis from the Tzemach Tzedek. And now we go back into the discourse. Now one against the other God made. Once God created a holy Yaakov that's coming into this world to blast away the Klippa and to illuminate and to shine down a holy Chachma, that does not mean that work is going to be easy. Because even though Yaakov is undefeatable and unbreakable, but that does not mean there can't be a challenge to him. Yaakov does have to go through a ferocious battle. Who fights him? What fights Yaakov is a power of Klippa that's similar to him. What power of Klippa is similar to him? We said Yaakov's koach is the power of Chachma. Chachma of holiness, Chachma of Kedusha. So Yaakov has to battle with Chachma of the other side. There's a Chachma, that Klippa that comes. And what does that mean? In simple words, when you start davening and you try to meditate and try to go deep inside your soul to discover your little shemen zayazach, your little jug of olive oil that has not been contaminated. Right? In order to discover that little jug that has not been contaminated by yesterday. Our daily activities of yesterday, the news that we watch, the people that we hear, the vulgarity that we hear, all these klippas seep into us, okay? But there's always a deep place deep inside that's clean and pure, that has not been, but the problem is, in order to find it, you have to go deep into yourself. And that's what davening is. You're going deep and deep into your neshama. You're looking to discover that purity. You're looking to find that chachma shebenefesh, the inner purity of your soul, right? The chachma. While you're trying and to activate your chachma, what's going to happen is during davening, you're going to get all kinds of distracting thoughts. Machshav zaris, unholy thoughts are going to hit you, bombard you. Who is that? That's the chachma of the other side, the chachma of Klippa. One opposite the other. The God has done the kamoishe yesh chachma b'kedusha, just like there is chachma in holiness. V'hem b'chinos abba v'ima, and they are father and mother. Chachma and bina. The Misham Nilkach Yaakov, that's where Yaakov comes from. Kachnes Ava b'Sitra Achra. So there is on the other side, in the Sitra Achra, on the other side, Gam Kein Chachma de Klippa. On the other side, there is also Chachma. But this Chachma is the Chachma of Klippa. Al Derech Chartume Mitzrayim. Where do we have that there is wisdom in the Klippa? These are the sorcerers of Egypt, which we know that in Egypt, they were very, very great philosophers, thinkers. Paro had his chachamim. Egypt had a lot of knowledge, but its knowledge was all knowledge to explain everything away in a natural means. It's basically like scientists that are bent in explaining everything just as pure science, and not to find or not to connect things or try to, with that chachma of thing, to conceal that there is a God creating everything. That's an unholy chachma. And that's chartume Mitzrayim. Oy kamoy shekasav, or like it says, chachamim heima lahara. They're wise to do bad. What does he mean? Does he mean two madregas over here? I'm not exactly sure. He brings oy or like. So maybe it means two things. It can mean chachma chitzainis. Maybe the first thing, I'm guessing now. He doesn't say this, and I haven't seen this. Maybe chartume Mitzrayim means when a person, for instance, we know secular studies can be very damaging to the soul. To be careful. Because a lot of times certain learnings or certain things are conducive to challenge one's emunah and one's faith. Unless someone can really, really, really learn it to the very, very end, then you can see it's not contradicting to holiness. But at some points, learning. So that could be one thing. It's a contamination of the mind. Another inyan that can be over here is he means chachamim heimalara, means simply the scheming, using of the mind for unholy purposes. Doesn't mean necessarily sciences. It's just and all of that affects one's ability to have crystal clean, clear chachma, to be able to. Now the rule is like this. The Alter Rebbe says, the forces of chachma and bina, of klippa, of the unholy, that stand up against our holy chachma, is something that we can zap them, and they disappear the moment you zap them. In other words, you don't really have to wrestle your way through all these unholy chachma to be victorious. The way, it's the idea that the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that how do you deal with negative thoughts that have come up into your mind? How do you deal when you're bombarded with unholy thoughts? Whatever it is. When the thoughts are just coming and you try to. So sometimes a person thinks, I got to argue with the thought. I got to argue my way through it and beat my Yetzer Hara by explaining him how wrong he is. The Alter Rebbe said that's not the right method. That's not the way to fight him. The best way to fight him is by shining just light. When you shine light, darkness dispels automatically. Instead of trying to argue with whatever suggestion the other side is making, grab something, put your mind into something holy and something godly, and automatically the klipa will go away. It won't happen in a second. It will try to break in, but if you're consistent and you focus, and you say, I'm now learning, I don't have time for this, and you focus your mind on holy thoughts, a little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. So even though that's what he says, when you have one get up, it says by Yaakov and Esav actually. It says that they're like a seesaw. Yaakov represents holiness and Esav represents klipa. And Hashem told, and the Rivka, when she couldn't understand what's going on in her belly, when she went to find out, what was she told? She told that you have these two forces inside of you, and when one and the zel yematz, one will gather strength against the other. So kishazek comes and noifel. When one gets up, the other one will fall. It's gone. So, which means that when we activate kedusha, when we daven, when we meditate in davening, automatically you're shining in your kedusha, your holiness. The klipa will disappear. When you reveal the holiness of kedusha, when you expose your yud that's inside of you, you reveal that yud. Don't keep it as a best kept secret. A lot of times as Jews, we want to keep our yud in a very, very hidden place, a very secret. It's not the avodah. Our avodah is to reveal that secret to ourselves and then to the world. When you reveal your yud, as a memela mizbatlim hachachmas chitzonis. So automatically, all the unholy chachma dissipate and falls away. The sitra achra of the other side. V'zeu, and this is the meaning of Hibit aven b'Yaakov, that the iniquities cannot beat Yaakov. The iniquities cannot destroy Yaakov. Because when Yaakov is strong by himself and takes a stand and shines his chachma, the klipa dissipates. You don't have to argue with darkness for it to go away. All you have to do is ignore the darkness by turning on light, and the darkness goes away. That's the chachma, which he explains in a minute, which means all the distracting thoughts. Melashin, the ish avein machshavoisav. Where do you find that aven, iniquity, is related to thoughts? It's the chachma, because it says a man of aven will relinquish machshavos of his thoughts. So you see that aven is related to machshav. Shehema machshavis ra'is. These are the negative thoughts, machachma hanel, that come from the unholy chachma. Lo yuchal lahabit klal, lo hibit aven. See, that's the whole point. You see, the whole point over here is lo hibit. It's not even looking. That means what happens to darkness? See, darkness can never steer light in the eye. Why? There's never a conflict. There's never a debate between light and darkness. Why is there never a debate between light and darkness? Because the moment you open up the light, darkness disappears automatically. There's not an argument. The negative thoughts cannot gaze. That means they don't stay there looking at him, because the moment you display this power, the klipa runs. But that doesn't mean it's not hard work. It's exhausting, as he's going to explain in a minute. There is avodah. It's difficult work. It can't gaze at all at Yaakov. When chachma of kedusha comes, the light pushes away the darkness. And so is below in the service of God. In all the days of the weekdays, we all have to be Yaakov Jews. That's our avodah. Because during the weekday, we find ourselves in a world surrounded with klipa, surrounded, our bodies are not in the mood of serving God, or the whole service, the whole state of fears around us is unholiness, and our work is to blast light. By doing what? Levarer birudim. We need to break a refinement. We make first a general refinement inside ourselves. Because again, when you wake up in the morning, you're not necessarily filled with a powerful awareness of God and purpose. You're filled with yourself, with your own ego. I'm hungry, I'm tired, how am I going to have a good time? What am I eating for breakfast? Am I having a cheese omelet or am I having a Spanish omelet? That's what you wake up in the morning. That's what you're thinking about. It's like the most important thing in the world, what kind of omelet I'm going to eat right now. Nothing else. Nothing else. There's no other reality but the fact that I need to know what I'm going to eat. So what's that? That's a total klippa. Nothing bad. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm eating an omelet. I'm not eating bacon and whatever. But it's just there's nothing godly there. That's how you wake up in. You wake up in this unholy state. What do you have to do during davening? You have to make a refinement. You have to push your chitzoni, as the ego, the klipa, out, and orient yourself. You have to set yourself straight. What do you do during davening? Davening is all about expanding your holy consciousness. The moment you say Baruch Sha'amar V'hoya Olam, God spoke and the world came into existence, you suddenly realize that this is not just a world, this is God's world, and I'm not just an accident. I purposely was put over here by Hashem with a purpose, with a mission. So first, that's called the first Biur. You have to realize that. Your first Biur you have to do every day is a Biur in yourself. You have to clarify within yourself what your life is about. Davening is all about clarification. You have to open up your neshama and make that fill your entire consciousness. Once you did a Biur in yourself, now once you're focused, you can bring focus to the people you meet. But the people that meet you, you rub off on them. You're sharing your excitement, your fervor, your passion about what you're all about, to serve Hashem. They're swept up in that frenzy. You give them a little bit of light, and it can be all throughout the day. From the teller you meet in the bank, to the grocery person over there, to the mailman. Every person you meet, there's something godly rubbing off you. And then it translates also into the objects that you come into contact with. Because all these things suddenly become purposeful. They become focused. And you're doing clarity. You're making a biur and everything. So, you start Yaakov does birurim through tefillah. In davening, you're megale the yud, you reveal the yud b'chinas chachma, the chachma, v'reusa the liba, and the thirst and the longing of your heart to serve God. And where do you reveal that? B'chinas akvayim, in your heels, which is in your body, which is the heels. And then you remain focused all day. By doing what? Once you daven that way, so automatically when things come up during the day that are not kosher and not without God, you push them away. And then vasei toiv, you do good. And then lo hibit oven b'yaakov. Then the sin cannot look at Yaakov. In other words, when your lights are off, and I'm going to say this is just I think this is really what's being said. If you forget to turn on your light in the morning, you're going to experience all kinds of klippa during the day. Even though you're generally a good Jew, you want to do it. But if you did not turn on your light in the morning, there's a lot of klippa that's gonna all kinds of stuff. But if you have a Chassidic morning, a deep morning, in which you focus the beginning of the day, whatever time you have, but you set that you want to turn on your light, you want to turn on your chachma. That should light up in your brain, and from there into your heart and your entire being. Fill it during davening with chachma, deep davening, spreading godly consciousness. Then what's going to happen? The klippa doesn't have a chance. It runs throughout the day. Because you're filled, you're radiating that light that gets the klippa, that ma'at or doicha b'chosh. However, this is all during the week. B'Shabbos, when Shabbos comes along, Yisroel. There's no toil in Israel. Because on Shabbos we ascend to a whole different place. Because in the level of Yaakov, nimtza b'chinas amal. In Yaakov there is amal. Adam la'amal yula. The person was created to toil. Shehu avoida. This is the service va'yagia and the toil levarer birurei noiga, in which we have to do a bidur, in which we have to rectify, we have to separate good from bad. V'harei yored mimakayimai. First of all, the very fact that you're going out from your holy place and you're going to influence somewhere else, that's already toil. Person gets tired when they travel. And the fact that you are traveling, you're traveling out of a Jew really is an entity of holiness. The fact that you're going out of your environment into an unholy place, no, that's a bitter. You go down from your place, from the place of a kvayim, levarisham, to do a bitter over there. And this is the idea, 6 days you work. And why is it called tavoid? Ibud ha'oros. That's called ibud. Ibud ha'oros. Remember we said earlier, we gave it in the introduction. It's the work of a tannery. You're taking the tough elements. What's a tannery? You take these tough hides and skins and you bend them back and forth till they become soft and refined. That's what we're doing. We're taking the tough elements of this world, our body, our Yetzer Hara, and the world, the things around us that are so tough and they don't want to bend and yield towards their purpose to serving God, and you have to work with it. Shenikra avoida, that's very difficult work. Shetzarech avoida v'yegia, you need a lot of work and a lot of toil, until they would change from the first substance of what they are, to become something else. Until you take a hard piece of leather and you can make with them soft shoes, it's a lot of work. Or the like. So the same is still the same our work of rectifying this world, to transform it from darkness to light. Al Yadei, how do you do that? Sha'oichel, you eat. How do you take something that's dark and make it holy? Well, we human beings are converters of energy. That's what we are. We are all, what is it called? We are, someone used a good word a few weeks ago, I heard. We are consumers, right? We consume stuff. We're very big consumers, all of us. We're consuming stuff all the time. Clothing that we have to wear, food that we need to eat, oxygen that we need to breathe, stuff. You know how much goes through? Look at your shopping bills and lists. It's like how much goes, like, I wonder, like, how in the world did all this, and where did it all go? It's like, so we're big consumers. God made us that way. We're very needy. Why? Like this, we consume. What we'll do is everything that ends up being part of us, we can, once they become part of us, we can direct it into a different direction where we are. So all these things in this world are unholy until they become part of us. But the moment the food becomes your energy, the moment the calories are burnt into an exercise, and what's your exercise is doing a mitzvah, you've turned something that was a klipa, unholy, disconnected from God, and converted it into Hashem Echad. You turned it into God. That's what you've done. You've taken things in this world, all energy. You said Shema Yisroel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad with that energy. She'oichelu mispalel, you eat and you daven b'koyach ha'achila, with the power of the food that you ate, food that could have been eaten by someone else, and they would have used the energy for something totally unholy. And now you use the energy to serve Hashem. Hareza avoida. But this is hard work. L'shanoisan memohusan. You have to change them from their mohus, from their substance of what they are. V'lasoisen, to make things meyesh ayin, to make from substance nothingness, make from things that are yesh, things that feel themselves very, 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 very something, and to turn them and convert them into something surrendered to God, where they become ayin, when they become nothingness. That's avodah. Because Hashem, like the Baal Shem Tov said, Hashem creates the world me'ayin liyesh, from non to yesh. Well, the Baal Shem Tov said differently. The Baal Shem Tov said the Eibishter gives Yidden, Hashem makes from ruchnias gashmias, from spiritual Hashem makes God, and our avodah is to make from gashmias, take physical things and turn them back into ruchnias, turn it into a mitzvah. So that's the same idea. Hashem makes from ayin to yesh, and our work is to change it back from yesh to ayin. Shehu mishana seder ishtalshalos. This is a change in the whole order of the way God creates things. God creates things that the more He diminishes His light, the more stuck up on itself it becomes. And then we take it. That's why it says Gedol L'Maaseh Tzadikim. The word Tzadikim is greater than God's word, because we convert things back into holiness. That's why this is avodah. This is work of amal and toil. But that's why it says in Shabbos, Kivoi Shavas, on this day God rests. Michlal. What do you see from here? That on the other 7 days there's no rest. It's toil. And the 6 days of creation, it's toil. But this is only in the level of Yaakov. Avo but by Yisroel, lo yesh b'chinas amal. By Yisroel there is no toil. Why? So it says in Priyetz Chayim. We said earlier in Shabbos, It's not our work to fix the world. Shabbos, we enter into a whole different zone. Shabbos, our work is just to delight in God's light. To delight in godliness, to revel in Hashem's beauty. So it says, so now he's going to explain it. See, earlier we had a whole long introduction, how this is in our lives. Earlier we had this whole explanation, how this is in our lives. Now he's going to explain how this is in the cosmic realms. Shebechoil, in the weekdays, so he's going to explain the dynamics work like this. In the weekdays, hu zivuk Yaakov v'Rachel. You see, we are supposed to run our internal clock and our internal calendar. We have to run it synchronized with the cosmic calendar. So the way things run on a bigger scale, that's the way every Jew is like a miniature Seder Ishtalshalos. You're like on a miniature entire godly configuration. So the way the things are configured up there, that's the way we're supposed to be configured down here. We're like the shadow of God. Or the right? So what is that? So on the weekday it says the zivuk, there is a supernal, the way the energy flows into the universe is that there is a unification between what's called Yaakov and Rachel. Rachel is the Shekhinah, which is the life force of creation. And then there is Yaakov, is the Jewish person entering into the creation. Yaakov channels his light into Rachel. There's a yichud between Yaakov and Rachel. And that's what sustains the world. What does it mean? During the week, the avodah is, what's Yaakov? We spoke earlier. The avodah is that projecting of light downward. That's the avodah. Illuminating, blasting through, yibaka. That's our avodah. So so the Arizal says that in heaven, that in the weekday, the zivug is Yaakov and Rachel. V'az, and then nimtza avodas habirurim. That's when the avodah is to do the Biur. Sheyardim bibiyah. This yichud means that, again, because we learned many times, even though we learned so many times that it's the Shekhinah is the one that does the Biur. Malchus goes down, Malchus is Yerid, but we know that the Chazal say an interesting thing. Ishtar koi lichbosh, it's a man's style to conquer, it's not the woman's style to conquer. Which means on the deepest level, on the highest levels, it means that the Shekhinah, power of Shekhinah itself, doesn't have the power, even though she's the one active at this avodah of refinement, the real power she's getting from the Ze'er Anpin, from her husband. So it's the power of the level of Yaakov that empowers the avodah of Birurim. And that's the meaning over here. Avodah sabirurim. We go down into Bria, Tzir, and Asiya to do a Biur. How do you see that Ze'er Anpin is Yored? Not only Shekhinah. What is the 6 days of creation? The 6 days of creation is Sunday is Chesed, Monday is Gevura. So you see there's a Yerida of the Midas into the creation. And that's the power of where we do the Birurim. And afterwards, Mis'alem ba'atzilus b'shas atfilah. Meaning to say like this: all day long, when you're not davening, when we're not in a state of davening, where are we? Even though we're inspired with a holy awareness, we have that in the background of our mind, but the actual space that we find ourselves with is a space of klipa, is a space of bria, yetzir, and asiya, a space of unholiness. During davening itself, we can enter into a consciousness of atzilus. What's the consciousness of atzilus? Total unification with God. That's during davening. But the rest of the day, we're in klipa, and over there trying to focus our lives and do what's right. We're elevated into atzilus b'shas atfilah during the time of davening, just like it is in our own little self. So it is in the Shekhinah. During the whole day, the Shekhinah is down in the world. During davening, it says the Shekhinah rises into atzilus. Avo b'Shabbos, but on Shabbos, uzivug Yisroel v'Rachel. On Shabbos, the unification is through Yisroel and Rachel, not Yaakov and Rachel. What does that mean? Yisroel hainu zah. There's an Eran. V'hainu, what does that mean? Shabbos, that on Shabbos, and the dynamics of Yisroel is a complete different dynamic of Yaakov. Yaakov's Inyan is he's a warrior, he's a fighter, he's going to go pick a fight with darkness. He's going to go into the klipa to blast it with light. Yibaka, keshachar oirech, he's going to shine his light. Yisroel's Inyan is a whole different Inyan. Yisroel is suddenly that same Yaakov Avinu, suddenly he becomes, withdraws completely from this battle, and he goes into the Beis Medrash to learn, to daven, to sing, to be close to God. It's a whole different Inyan. It's the Jew not as a fighter, but the Jew as an extremely high spiritual being cleaving to his Creator. Hainu Shabbos ein yordem akelim datzilos levarer bibiyah. And that's the reason why that is physically that way. We don't do that. Is because spiritually it's the same thing. In every day it says the kelim. We said earlier, Chesed goes down on Sunday. Monday, Gevurah goes down. Every day, one of the spheros descends into the lower worlds to do the Biur, but not on Shabbos. On Shabbos, the Kelim of Atzilus do not go down and Bri, Yatzir, and Asir to do a Biur. Shazeu Pchenas Yaakov. That's what Yaakov is. Yud Ekev. It's the Yud Ekev going down. Kim Adarab, on the contrary, Misalim HaBirudim. Everything is in an opposite state. It's not in a state of down, where energy is flowing downward into the lower forms of existence. Quite on the contrary, everything is retracting. Everything is going back up. And all the holiness and all the sparks of holiness that we have attracted during the week through our avodah. So during the week, we know, even when we, let's say, daven, or when we use energy that we took from the klipa, and we're trying to serve Hashem, during the week, we don't have crystal clear service of God. We don't experience Hashem's unity to the utmost. Even in our highest moment during the week, it's still a little blurry, because we're still in Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya. We haven't really made it into Atzilus. Shabbos, what happens? It says all the sparks of holiness that were elevated during the week receive their ultimate elevation and absorption in Hashem on Shabbos. So Shabbos, we're not down hunting sparks. We're just pulling everything inward. It's elevated. All that which we've elevated during the weekday, become absorbed in Atzilus, which means, in other words, a very deep thing. You don't realize, we're not conscious of this, that when we have a very good davening on Shabbos, or when we have a very strong spiritual Shabbos and a very deep spiritual moment, it's not only the time that we're in right now that is now being affected. It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, when you were very outside of holiness, is now being brought into this as well. It's an amazing chiddush. I mean, everybody, we hear about it, but we don't really think about it. It's like you're taking the days of the week itself and all the experiences of the week. We're, again, providing that they were kosher and directed towards Hashem, because what you're elevating in Shabbos is that which you have already refined during the week. So you take those experiences, and it's almost like when we say that Yosef had to do a Biur Sheni, a second elevation. After the Shvatim elevated, they had to bring it to Yosef, and Yosef had to re-elevate. It's the same idea. Because Shabbos is the elevation of worlds. And this is the idea this is why we're called Yisroel. Just like we spoke earlier, the etymology of the word Yaakov, now let's analyze the word Yisroel. Yisroel comes from the word Shir Kale, a song of Kale. So what does that mean? Yisroel is Shir Kale. What does that mean? So Kale is singing. So what does it mean Kale is singing? See, we spoke earlier that Yaakov is the Ze'er Anpin. But the Ze'er Anpin of Yaakov, of during the week, the Ze'er Anpin is putting on clothing, warrior clothing, to go down lower to fight. So the Inyan of Yaakov is again, Yaakov is Teferes, so it's an element of the 6 emotions. But they're in a state, as we said before, of going down to fight. On Shabbos, what happens to Kale? What's Kale? Kale is a name associated with also the Ze'er Anpin. Chesed is called Kale, Chesed Kale. But in some way, the entire Ze'er Anpin is called Kale. Not just Chesed is called Kale, but the entire Ze'er Anpin is called Kale. So if the entire, but what is Kale doing? Instead of Yibaka going down that way, what is Kale doing? Sheer. Kale is singing. Ze'er Anpin is singing. So how does that translate into the neshama? Instead of the neshama going out into dark places to illuminate, the neshama has a day where it's supposed to reconnect itself higher and higher and higher and delight in all the why. Because what happens is, as a result of all our work that we did during the week and elevating these sparks, that brings the Eibishter tremendous pleasure. That brings God tremendous pleasure. Pleasure we know is in Keser. When there is delight, there is so what happens is we're activating, we're opening up Keser, and suddenly there is a great outpouring of godly delight. The Eibishter is thrilling, so to speak, in all that we've done, and that thrill and that delight reveals itself into Atzilus and into the, and over there, the Ze'er Anpin is then experiencing that exhilarating revelation of Tainug that's coming from above in Keser. So what is it doing? It's sheer. It's singing. It's singing to who? Sheer Kale. Kale is singing. It's interesting. There is a Yisroel during the week as well. We're going to see later in the Maimar. But the Yisroel of the week is not only Yaakov during the week. There's Yisroel also during the week. But the Yisroel during the week is not sheer Kale. It's Yashar Kale. Yashar means Kale is going down. Yashar Kale. That the Kale is being directed. The illumination of the spheres are directed downward, straight. Now it's in a song of sheer. Sheer always means, what is singing? What do you sing by your Fabrengen? What is singing supposed to do? It's supposed to elevate the whole environment. It's supposed to pick people up to a higher place. When you sing a niggin, it lifts you up. Sheer Kale. Kale is singing. Kiem Adarab, as he says over here. Shehu b'chenas hashir va'ala. Shekol aliyos, because every elevation, they sheer is through a song. V'hainu ha'ala shel b'chenas Kale. It's an elevation of the element of Kale. Shenase, which this becomes me'or chayzer shel habirurim. This sheer, this song comes from the returning light of all the birurim. As we said earlier, why is there such revelation of pleasure in the upper world? Because there's so much revelation. Well, why is there so much revelation? Because God has tainug from all that we did during the week, which means all the sparks of holiness that have been included, that have been elevated. That's called the Or Chayzer. Or Chayzer is the light's rebounding light going up. And what does this rebounding light cause? Mad. It causes masculine waters. Maayon duchrin, masculine waters. Which means Mamakam Gevoya, from a very high place. What does that mean? In the revelation of the supernal pleasure, Sheyesangu al Hashem. You should be able to delight on God, which means the lights of Keser are shining. He's going to say later in the Maimer that on Shabbos there is a yichud of Zah and Keser. Yeah? So the yichud is upwards. See, during the week, the yichud is between Havaya and Elokim. Elokim is Malchus, it's the creation. The avodah is to bring the Or Eliki of Havaya into Elokim. So the avodah is only from Ze'er Anpin going down, not receiving light and delight from above. But on Shabbos, the yichud is Havaya and Eke. Eke is the name of Keser. So you're getting light upward. There is a delight and a pleasure in the Ein Sof. And now here the Tzemach Tzedek makes a twist that's a little, it's Ve'ef Shaloimar, which seems to be going a little bit different than what he just said, which I don't understand. Because what we just said is that the Shir of Shabbos is a song that is directly related to what? I mean, I do understand it, but I mean, Yesh Loimar, but okay. We were just saying that the song of Shabbos comes because as a result of all the sparks that were elevated during the week, what happens? That is Oila Lamaila. That sheer causes a revelation from above, and that's the singing. But now the Tzemach Tzedek adds that it's not so much related to the Aliyah from below, because a song that's related to the elevation from below is called Shira Chadasha, feminine song. This is called sheer. And the difference between it's a masculine song. That means that the song is not coming because something is elevated from below. That's a feminine song. So let's see. The F Shalomer we can see. But how does that fit? But I think I'm going to explain it in a minute. The F Shalomer we can say, the Piddush Shir Keil Hainuk, the Piddush Al Pasuk, Shiru Lashem Shir Chadash. Sing to God a new song. The Hine for behold. He explains it like this. Keshem is badded in Man de Biyah. When the Maayon Nukvin, when the feminine waters, when the elements of this world, which is Bria, Tzir, and Asiyah, are elevated, v'oilin le'iskala, and they rise up to become absorbed, b'mad, in the Maayon Duchrin, in the masculine waters, the Tikkun of Tikkun, which means when these broken elements of this world become unified with holiness, with godliness, that's a simple meaning, that they get connected to the masculine waters of Tikkun. Azay nikra shira chadasha, that's called a new song. Shira Lasha Nekeva. Why? Because who was singing? It's these sparks of holiness that were part of the Shekhinah, that were stuck in the world. They're singing because they're reunified with their source. So it's her song, not his song. Ki biya nikra derech klal alma de nukva. Because in general, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah is called the feminine world. Because it's the world of the Shekhinah, which is female. Legaba Atzilus, compared to Atzilus, which is called the masculine world. The Nikra, and it's not, that explains why it's a feminine song. Why is it called Shira Chadasha? Shira Chadasha Shipchu Giyulim. Why Shira Chadasha, a new song? Because the whole song comes from the Chidush. What's the Chidush? It's a novelty. When things that were stuck in Klippa, when things that were in a state of Yesh, that were disconnected from God, suddenly are converted and they become godly, what happens? It's a Chidush. That's a novelty. So it's a Shira Chadasha. When we're delighting in that which we've transformed. When you take a look and you see, I had this challenge and I had this difficulty and I was able to break through it and come out winning in it. So that's why I conquered it. So that's a song. That's V'nikra Shira Chadash, Kizau Davar Chadash. It's a new thing. Sheyeskalel, that it should become absorbed. Davar Shanafel B'Shvira B'Noiga, something that fell down in the Shvira of Noiga. V'yala Lamayla B'Kedusha Al Yoina Atzilus, and it should arise up in the holiness of Atzilus. V'chein Aliyas HaMalchus, the same as the general force of Malchus. Kishehi Oiles, when she rises Mebiyah from Bria Yetzir and Asiyah La Atzilus Ta Atzilus, Nikra Shira. This is called Shira Lashon Nekeva. Aval Shir Lashon Zachar, but the sheer masculine song, who Aliyas Hadachar Atzmai. It's when the male is singing. It's when Ze'er Anpin rises, not Malchus. Dahainu is Alos Pchinazah, when the Ze'er Anpin rises, Sheyakamblu Kelim Dezah Ma'oirois Ta'aba Atzmon. It's when the Midos of Atzilus, when the Midas of Atzilus rise up higher to receive light from Chachma and Bina itself, as we're going to see later in the Maimer, that's what we said, what happens. On Shabbos, the Jew rises higher to receive pure Chachma light. That's what Shabbos Kodesh is. Kodesh is Chachma. Shabbos, there is an illumination of Chachma light from Chachma in the Neshama. For who Aliyah Shalaya Yadei Birudim. This Aliyah is not through the Birudim. Now he's going to explain it in a minute. It doesn't mean there's no Birudim at all. Because what causes this aliyah to happen in the first place is what you did during the week. Because Misha Tarach be'erev Shabbos, Yoichel b'Shabbos. You can only sing on Shabbos if you worked hard on erev Shabbos. But the actual shir, I think that's what he means. The shir itself, you hear Yeshua. The shir itself is coming from an illumination from above, not from the aliyah. In the weekday, the song is connected to what? To the weekday and to the darkness being transformed. Shabbos, the delight is not in the darkness. The light is not that I converted. The delight is us tisaneg al Hashem. You're delighting on pure godliness. What made God accessible that you should be able to delight in Him? That's because Hashem wants to shine upon you, because of the struggle that you struggled during the week, and because you conquered on the week. That's what gave God a tainug. That's what the Eibishter shines upon you. But the actual pleasure is from a shining of light that's coming upon you from above, not from the transformation happening from below. The transforming of the below is only a trigger to bring this light. That's the idea. It's not from the birudim. Rak aliyah, it's an elevation. The toisvis or the kedusha atzma. It's an added light of kedusha itself. Like it's going to be after Mashiach comes. Mashiach comes, we know it's going to be a world of pleasure and delight. Well, hold it. Doesn't all delight come from struggle? But after Mashiach comes, there's no more struggle. And the answer is, the pleasure is going to be from being elevated within holiness itself, higher and higher and higher and higher. That itself is the pleasure. It won't always be that our only pleasure, sense of satisfaction, is only when we conquered something dark. That's Golus-minded. That's the way it is now. When the Biur is over, and the spirit of unholiness Hashem will remove from the world. There won't be any bad at all. Nevertheless, there will be aliyahs in holiness itself. And we have something similar to that. B'Shabbos. So similar to that we have on Shabbos. Sha'aliyah the Shabbos who shaloy yedei birudim is not from the Biur. Kibbechoy like in the week. In other words, in the week, for instance, but during davening, your davening is fueled by the Biur you did yesterday. That's what's fueling your davening today. But on Shabbos, the aliyah is on its own. It's not ki b'Shabbos boirer aser. On Shabbos, boirer is aser. But you can't say it's totally not related to what happened, because it's through the birudim that you did during the week. Like Chazal say, Misha Tarach be'erev Shabbos, whoever was toiled on erev Shabbos will eat on Shabbos. But I think it's in a level what we call a garama. You know what we call a garama? It's only a cause. Because you did the birudim during the week, that caused pleasure above. And that pleasure is then behizgalus, the Maayon duchrin, the masculine waters come shining down, and that shining on Ze'er Anpin, on Zahav Atzilus, causes great pleasure. What?
It's not shayach. You cannot stop time. You cannot stop Shabbos. So it doesn't matter what you did or didn't do, the separation of it will come anyway.
No, but still Chazal say, even though you can't stop time, if you didn't work during the week, you're not going to have Shabbos. You won't have anything to eat on Shabbos, which means you won't have the pleasure. The physical pleasure is what?
Physical, but the spiritual.
No, you won't have the spiritual either. Not the work of Erev Shabbos. When you say when you don't work on Erev Shabbos, you don't have Shabbos, it means two things. Begashmius, it means if you don't make cholent, you're not going to eat cholent. And beruchnius, it means if you didn't prepare spiritual cholent during the week, which means you didn't do avodas habirudim, you're not going to have the pleasure on Shabbos. It's one is tied into the other. That means the Shabbos is affected of the week. But yet, even though it's affected of the week, the pleasure is not from the conversion of the inyanim of the weekday. The pleasure is us tisaneg al Hashem. A Yid on Shabbos can experience elokus, getlachkeit, that's not shaykh to the world, b'chlal. It's just pure holiness, pure Eibishter. Avala asid lava, the Yom Shekulei Shabbos. But when Mashiach comes and it's going to be the full day of Shabbos, then the aliyahs that are going to continue after Mashiach comes are going to be totally unrelated to elevating low things, because nothing is going to be low anymore. Tia aliyah shaloya yedei birudim klal. The aliyah will be not through a bitter at all. V'nikra aliyah zu b'shem shir, and that's called real shir. Lashon zachar b'chenas d'char, and that's a song of the male. V'alpize yesh lo imer shenikra aliyah the Shabbos shir kale. So the Tzemach Tzedek says. Based on this, we can say that Shabbos is called Shir Kale, Shu Aliyah de Kedusha Atzma. It's the Aliyah of holiness itself. Shaloy al Yadei Birudim. By the way, it's interesting because it's a surprise he doesn't mention this. In many other Memorim, it explains that's the difference between the song of Friday night and the song of Shabbos. Two Shabbosim. The Shabbos of Friday night is the pleasure that comes from being elevated from the darkness of the world. And that's why it's taka female. Shabbos Friday night is feminine. Everything is Shabbos Hamalka. Everything is Venuchu Va Kol Yisroel. Everything is female. Shabbos day is masculine Shabbos. And it says the energy of Shabbos day is all in a manner of Yerida, of descending light. That means from Keser it's shining into the Ze'er Anpin. It's not in a manner of Aliyah, of escaping the darkness. It's interesting that he doesn't mention that over here. That in Shabbos itself there's Shira and there's Shir. I guess we're talking about Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. Shaloya yedei birudim kamay b'choil. V'hayna kamay shekasav Eitz Chaim soif shin lamed. V'ha nikra kale. That zah is called kale. So the Ze'er Anpin itself is singing. It's not the aliyah of Malchus. Ein shal. Omnam yesh leim gam kem b'pir shir kale Hashem aliyah sa Malchus. Ayin b'Zoyar Parshas Bereishis Daf Yud Tes Amud Aleph Migdash Melech Sham. I tried to look up the Zoyar and I couldn't find at all what he's referring to. It does bring kale over there. But I guess the only way to really understand it is to look in Migdash Melech, and being that I don't have a Migdash Melech, which I thought about today that I should get a Migdash Melech, but meanwhile I don't have one, so I couldn't look this up. We're going to try to get it. That's why in the Bechina of Yisroel it says, you fought over Elokim. Now he's going to explain that idea that Yisroel is above Elokim. What does that mean? Because you're not the struggling weekday Jew. Shabbos, you're Yisroel. You're over the Elokim. You're over the darkness. The Inyan, and this is what I mentioned earlier, there are 120 combinations of the name of Elokim. Because again, the name of Elokim is the name of God that creates concealment and darkness. The name of Elokim is Gematria HaTeva. It's the name of constriction. It's the name of Gevura, which conceals and blocks. In order to get it really, really, really dark, God had to put many, 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 many filters. And those are, according to the Arizal, 120 tzerufim of Elokim. Ba'olam is b'yah b'soid. There's the secret of Malach Elohim al Goyim, that Elokim reigns over nations. That means over the Goyim, over the nations of the unholy world, it's the name of Elokim that dominates, which means that blocks Hashem's light to create this klipa. The Hainu, which means as follows. Where do you get the 120? Where do you get this number that there is 120 tzerufei Elokim? The Hainu, which means Mizad de Bria Atzia Malchus Tasiyah. From the Ze'er, where do the, so it says in Eitz Chaim, so I looked up a little bit in Mavoy Sha'arim, from the Arizal, where, I don't know if I found exactly the spot, but somehow like this I got over there, that, how do you get the number 120 tzerufim of Elokim? These are the 120 different combinations, but exactly, he says, there's like as follows. In Bria, in the world of Bria, you already have Elokim. The first 20 tzerufim of Elokim are concealing light of God in the world of Bria, the first 20. And that is from the Ze'er Anpin of Bria. It looks like this. The Chachma and Bina of Bria are above Elokim. Over there, it's still pure godliness. It's almost like Atzilus. It's still Bria, but it's similar to Atzilus. Maybe that's why I think in Chachma and Bina, in the Chabad of Bria is Gan Eden. Over there is pure light. So it's still, Gilui, Vayita Havaya Elokim, Gan Be'eden. That Gan Eden is from Havaya, not from Elokim. That means Havaya is shining through in Gan Eden. So that could be, that's the Chabad of Bria, there's no Elokim yet. But from the Ze'er Anpin of Bria, we know that there's 10 spheres in each world. From the Ze'er Anpin of Bria, there's an eslapshus of the name of Elokim, which means a strong filter. 20 of them. Why 20? I'm not exactly sure the number 20, why he comes up with 20 in the Zah of Zah and Malchus of Bria. That's 20. In Yetzirah and in Asiya, there's 50 each. Why? Because for the five partsufim that there is, because all 5 partsufim, so 5 and the 5 partsufim of Yetzirah, and he doesn't explain this because there's 5 partsufim, and each one, I guess if there's 5 partsufim, each one has 10 combinations of Elokim. So it's 5 times 50. So together you get in Yetzirah. So as you're going down, the more Elokims you're putting, the more concealments, the more blockages, the more Gevuras you have, the darker it gets. But that's Yaakov. Yisroel is what? Sarisam Elokim. So on Shabbos we rise into Atzilus. On Shabbos we rise above all these Kuf Chaf Tzirufim of the name of Elokim. Ham Kuf Chaf Tzirufim Shalokim, Kama Shekasa B'Seif Sefer Mavoy Sha'arim, V'ayim Be'etz Chaim Shar HaShemais. Look at Eitz Chaim Shar. There's interesting, at the end of Sefer Mavoy Sha'arim, it's in the end over there, it's part of the writings of the... in the end over there, there's a whole discussion of the lowest worlds of klippas, and you get it actually describes every country. It's really interesting stuff there. Like which klippas, where and when, and how it evolves in the lower realms. Because Chassidus doesn't really pay attention to this stuff. Chassidus is always busy talking about the Orein Seif that's Kol Ba'atzmos and this and that. But a lot of cool Kabbalistic stuff about what's going on down here, about which snakes and scorpions dominate here and there you get when you read that stuff. In any case, look at Eitz Chaim Shar HaShemos, where it talks about what's dominating in these lower realms down here. Now, ultimately, even though the 120 tzarufim of Shem Elokim really where do they really take hold? And where do they really have their powerful darkening effect? In the world of Bria, and then darker in Yetzirah, and finally in Asiya, it's like we say, Rubai Kekulei Ra, mostly Klippa. Fine. But really, where does it begin? In Malchus of Atzilus. Because Malchus da Atzilus, we know, is the name of Elokim itself. Because what's the whole point of Malchus? Let's think about it. What's the whole point of Malchus? It's to separate. There should be a king and a subject. When you don't have, and that requires a filter. Because if God's truth would be shining, if God's truth would be emanating through without that filter of Malchus, then the Eivishter wouldn't have the pleasure of having a Melech ala Ein Melech b'lo Yam. There has to be a disconnect. So Elokim in Malchus of Atzilus creates the general disconnect, and then the Kuf Chav Tzirufim, they're already the various variations of how dark it will get and how nifrad the creatures will become till we reach Olam Hazeh Gashmi, where you're dealing with creatures that can deny God completely. Right? Rebels. Right? That she's called Elokim, which is all about, and what's the purpose? That too has a purpose. Malchus is called Elokim. Malchus is here to create. Why? Because it's here to create what's called Yechud Tata, the lower Yichud. What's the lower Yichud? So we learn in the Zohar, we learn there's two types of Yichudim. A higher Yichud is Yichud Allah, is when you experience God's unity in a manner where you don't even exist. God is the only reality. It means you are part of Hashem, and all of existence is part of Hashem. Yechud Tata means I have a life, I have a me, but I am surrendering myself to the Eibishter. So where does that begin? The Yechud Tata in Malchus. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam Vayed is Yechud Tata, is the lower Yichud. That's Malchus. Shamastir, that hides, Liyasa Olam Nir Le'yesh. For the world to look, for the world to be a yesh. Avo B'chinas Yisroel, but that's only where? In Malchus. But Yisroel is Zeir Anpin. Yeah. Where's Yisroel? The root of the name Yisroel is in Zeir Anpin. It's not in Malchus. So Yisroel, and even Yaakov is also higher. Yaakov is also higher. But Yaakov is Yud Ekev. Yaakov goes down into the world of Malchus to illuminate. Yisroel is the Jew before he puts on the clothing of dressing himself up in the garments of Ekev. So Yisroel is the Jew, his pure neshama, before it encloses itself in all these darkness, before it goes into a body, before it goes into a nefesh Bahamas, before it b'chlal enters into the world. It's in a state of pure godliness. It's higher than Malchus. There's no Elokim there. Sarisem Elokim, you're above it. Avo b'chinas Yisroel, shu b'chinas Zah Atzilus, which is Zah of Atzilus, who mishtarer. It rules, Moishal al Shem Elokim, and it dominates over Elokim. Shalo Yastir al Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It doesn't allow the name of Elokim to conceal and block on the Or Ein Sof, and that's where we are on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we're in a place where there is no clouds, there aren't any blockages. V'ayim b'makam achar b'biur d'mezuzah miyamin. V'ner Chanukah m'smoil b'pirish ki ani yodaiti yigad lavai v'adenenu mikol Elokim. Okay. I didn't look that up, so I can't tell you what it says there. Now, when, as a result of this ishtalshalos, of this progressive descent, of these 120 tzarufim of the name of Elokim, where it keeps on getting darker and darker, which I mentioned earlier from the Pri Etz Chaim, that's the meaning of the word tseil maves. Tseil is 120, the shadows of death. Yash yanika gamkein lechitzainim. As, see, in the higher realms, at the initial stages of the 120 tzirufim, the chitzonim, there's very little chitzonim, but especially when it starts getting more and more veils, more and more concealments, it allows the chitzonim, the unholy, to start deriving energy from there. The ayin sarim and the 70 ministering angels. Since Yaakov, during the week, lowers himself down into the blockages of the name Elokim, that's why, since Yaakov is enclosed in the garments of Elokim, who has power, in that realm, who has power, the Klippa also derives energy from there. So if Klippa derives energy from there, they can challenge the Jew during the week. With Yaakov, as Yaakov goes down into Bri Yetzirah to do a Biur, he can encounter some really pretty nasty Klippas that try to wrestle with him. That's the war. But Alpha became, if a Jew is steady and strong, the Klippa can't get him. But all of this is only shayach in the b'china of Yaakov. Avo b'chinas Yisroel, but in the b'china of Yisroel, ain't shayach b'chinas Mulchama. Over there's no war. Why? Ki bezod atzilus, because in Ze'er Anpin, since Ze'er Anpin is pure the godliness of atzilus, with the Orein Sefer Shira purely, without any concealments, without any blockages, what happens? Ein shum yanika la'ayin sarim. The 70 ministering angels can't have any yanika from there. The achitzainim and the chitzainim. That's why we bichlal see within ourselves. Anybody that's a little sensitive can see it. That Shabbos you don't have the same struggles that you have during the week. You don't feel it. You just don't have it. You don't have. I'm not saying a person can't have a yetzer hara on Shabbos, but it's far, far, far more minuscule. You don't feel it. Why? V'zau, because the klippas are much weaker on Shabbos. They can't derive energy. Where you are on Shabbos, there's no yanikas achitzainim, so they can't stand up against you. V'zau leira amal b'Yisrael, there's no exertion amongst Yisrael. V'chein ba'adam. Now this is all, again, as I told you earlier, that this whole mimer is explaining the very same mimer that we learned a couple of years ago, but over there we learned it's Chassidus, and here we're learning the Kabbalah of it, the cosmic element of it. V'chein ba'adam, and the same is also when the person, when this element of Yisroel reveals himself on Shabbos in the Jew, which is the singing of Kel. So what does that translate? That you're in a state of loving and having pleasure and delight in the Eibishter. This is Knesses Yisroel. We said before it's a yichud of Yisroel and Rachel. Knesses Yisroel, Rachel receives from Yisroel. And Yisroel itself is not in a state of Yaakov, of descending. Yisroel is in a state of aliyah, of elevating, of reaching up into the Ein Sof. What does that mean? There's a fascinating mimer, which is called Zachar Asha Amalek, which we learned a few times. And that mimer, Zachar Shaslucha Amalek, over there it says that Amalek only has had power over the Jewish people, but derech b'tzeischem in Mitzrayim, on the way when you went out of Egypt. So he explained over there why did Amalek attach themselves, confront the Jewish people when they went out of Egypt. So he explains like this: there's three madregas, there's three levels of a Jew. One of them is when you're in Mitzrayim. That's when you're totally disconnected from God. When the klipa has dominion over a person. That's Mitzrayim. Then there is an extreme other state when you're living in the land of Israel. When you're living in the land of Israel, spiritually, I mean, you can live in the land of Israel and be totally disconnected, chas v'sholom. We're not talking about that. We're talking about when a Jew has reached the promised land. When a Jew spiritually has reached the promised land, it's called Eretz Toiva Rachava. Mitzrayim means constriction. Your neshama is constricted. It's not at all shining in your body. Mamash, your neshama is locked up. It's not shining in your body. That's Mitzrayim. Living in Eretz Yisrael means Eretz Toiva Rechava. Your ratzon, your Eretz, your love to God is Rechava, is broad, filling every fiber of your being. Your entire being is filled with love and pleasure in God. And then there is the derech, there is the midbar. There is the journey from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael. So the Alter Rebbe explains over there that on the journey is you're not yet, Hashem has not yet become the pleasure of your life. But you're yearning, you want that to happen. You know there's a bigger, you're still in constrictions. You're still in a state where you have still a physical reality that's still very real to you. You're aspiring to something higher. You're lechtech acharai b'midbar. You're following behind the Eibishter. You're not seeing Hashem panim b'panim. Panim b'panim is suddenly the Eibishter opens up to you. You see godliness. You see nothing else but Hashem. You feel such delight, such simcha, such pleasure. So the Alter Rebbe explains over there an interesting thing. Klippa can only fight with you when you're bederach. Once you already arrived be'eretz t'chayver l'chava, then what is Klippa offering you? Was he offering you pleasure? He's offering you delight. There's nothing there to him. Because you see, you experience clearly firsthand that what? Ava betanugim. You have a tainug in the Eibishter. What am I going to sell you what? So, but the dangerous time is when you're on the way. That's when Amalek can come and cool you down. So that's what the Rebbe is saying over here. He's using that same idea. Shabbos is the same bechina like Eretz Yisrael. Shabbos is a time when what? When you're us tisanig al Hashem, you're having tainug in the Eibishter. When you're having tainug in the Eibishter, the klipa cannot offer anything to you. That's why Shabbos is a time when there's no struggle. There's no zeh umazeh. It's only in the weekday Yaakov can encounter the Malach of Esau. Because that in the weekday you're aspiring for holiness, but you're not necessarily in Kedusha. And that's the idea. What does that mean? What does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, Hibit oven beYaakov. There's no iniquities, can't look at Yaakov. That means, as we explain now, that even in the weekday when there is a struggle, but the klippa cannot prevail. That by Yisroel during Shabbos, when you're in a Yisroel state, there's no toil. There isn't even toil. Why? Because you're above the struggle. You're totally above the struggle. And then it says, Hashem Elokav Imai. What does that mean? That's a continuation to what happens on Shabbos. Pidish, this is explaining, let's explain something. What is that godliness? Yeah, Yeshua. What is that godliness? There's a tifin yanim over here. What is the godliness? Good, you're saying that on Shabbos what? Suddenly, Shabbos shir kale, you're singing to the Eibishter. You're experiencing, but what is the godliness that's illuminating in the Ze'er Anpin on Shabbos? And I'm using first Kabbalistic terminology and we'll translate it into a Yid Avodah. But first, we're saying that during the weekday, the Ish Darkei Lichboish, the power of Ze'er Anpin, of the Midas of Atzilus, are in a downward state to conquer. Shabbos, they're in a state of Aliyah. Where do they go? So it says on Shabbos like this, that Ze'er Anpin is oile to receive from Chachmei Bin. To the point, not only that, they go so high that they're standing mamish in the place of Chachmei Bin. They're elevated. Usually, the light in the Ze'er Anpin is far more diminished than the light in Chachmei Bina. Because again, as it gets diminished. But on Shabbos, the Ze'er Anpin is oile to the makam of Chachmei Bina. And in there is the Izgalus of Taino, because in Chachma is Izgalus of Keser. So there is Izgalus, that's the idea of Az Tisaneg al Havaya, that the Taino comes down from Keser, where to? Into Havaya, which is the Ze'er Anpin. So that's the what? Because from where, that's where the Tainug is coming from. From Al Havaya, the Tainug is coming down. Az Tisaneg, yeah. From above Havaya, that's right. So now, that's the meaning of the continuation of this pasuk. On Shabbos, when it's V'lo Amal B'Yisrael, he doesn't have any toil, but what then is he doing? Why? Because Hashem Elokav Imoi with Yisroel, which means in the Ze'er Anpin, Hashem Elokav. Hashem is Chachma and Elokav is Bina. Hashem Elokav Imoi. Hashem Elokav, the lights of Chachma and Bina are manifesting Imoi b'pnimius into the. In other words, a Jew can experience such Chachma, such Bina, such deep revelations of a higher part of his neshama can illuminate inside of him. Hashem Elokidish Hashem Elokim u'b'chinas Abba va'ima da'atzilus. This is Chachma not ima va'atzilus. Hem imoi diza. They're with za. Mamish. Sheneslapshu boi b'chinas or pnimi. They enclose themselves in the Ze'er Anpin and the or pnimi mamish. Masha ein kein b'choil. What happens during the weekday? During the weekday, the Ze'er Anpin is also nashing, is also receiving sustenance. There is a flow from Chachma and Bina into Ze'er Anpin during the weekday as well. But during the weekday, it remains makif. In the weekday, the oil from Chachma and Bina remains makif over the Ze'er Anpin. It's not shining inside. Shabbos, why? So here he doesn't say it, but in the mimer, parallel mimer, there he gives a little explanation. If we have the lights of Chachma and Bina fully manifesting in the Ze'er Anpin, then we would never be able to descend down to do Biurim. Because we would be so enamored by the light that we can't. Or rather, put it this way. In order to do a Biur, see, this is what comes out. We do need the light of Chachma. That's the whole koyach. B'Chachma is Biur. But yet, here's the deal. A Biur, there's two ways you can do a Biur. And you have to be very careful when it comes to Biurim. One way you can do a Biur, which you think you're doing a Biur, is you're blasting that entity with light. But when you blast something with light, too much light that it can't handle, you're just destroying it. You're not really elevating it. A Biur needs to be in a manner where you work with it. You have to explain to that entity why, that, your enlightenment, whatever you know, you have to explain to it. He explains that the words of the Alter Rebbe, he says when a teacher wants to fix the mistake that a student has, he first must discuss the mistake he must first enter into the world of the mistake. discuss the fallacy, the problems with it, and then he can shine his light. That means he has to descend into that world. If the lights of Chachma and Bina, which means the power of what? That Einoid Movado, if Yechudi Allah, if that clarity, of that pure, crystal clear clarity of God's emes would be shining in us, we can never enter into the world to fix it. You have to first enter into it. You can't enter it because we would be above it all the time. So that's why the lights of Chachma and Bina have to remain makif over Zah during the weekday, and then Ze'er Ampin can go down through Malchus, Yaakov can descend to do a Biur. However, on Shabbos, since now there's no point anymore of doing Avodas HaBirurim, so the Makifim of Chachma and Bina suddenly reveal themselves in the Ze'er Anpin, and that's the meaning. Hashem Elokav Imoi, Imoi is with him, B'Pnimius. That's the idea. That which is makif during the week becomes Shabbos, your internal light. And then you get higher makifs. And now he quotes what it says in Pri Etz Chaim. It says in Pri Etz Chaim as follows: there is more aliyos to the zun, zuchre v'nukva, to the zeir ampin and to malchus, b'Shabbos, achem misalim l'makoim abba ve'ima mamish. They go up to the place of abba ve'ima. That means they enter into the experience of chachma. That means that chachma and bina become pnimius to them. V'oid chulu, yeah. So that's over there. He explains this idea. Kizehu tachlis aliyas ha'olamos. This is the tachlis of the aliyas of the worlds. Shahamakifim yeh pnimiyim. That which was once makif, meaning encompassing, higher than us, should enter in. V'yimshechu makifim al yoinim yoiser. They should come higher makif. Ikenoida, as it is known, shebechoil. Now this idea that on Shabbos we internalize such highlights is hinted to in the idea that the Arizal says that in the weekday is the yichud of Havaya and Elokim, and in Shabbos is yichud Havaya ve'eka. So what does that mean? Yichud Havaya and Elokim means that the Ze'er Ampin, which is Havaya, is being misyached with Malchus, meaning to say the whole avodah during the week is that you should bring in the Yechudi Allah. We should take our awareness of God, our Chachma Yud Ekev, to bring it into the world of Akvayim, to the world of the Shechina, to illuminate downward. That's Yichud Havaya and Elokim. Bring Havaya and Elokim. So it's all an avodah of going down. However, on Shabbos, what happens? Havaya, instead of being misyached with Elokim, is misyached with what? With Eka. What's Eka? Eka's Keser. So that means that the Ze'er Ampin is receiving Keser light, receiving all the pleasure, all the Ein Sof light, and then that itself is being nimshach into Malchus as well. Hold it over here. B'Shabbos yichud Havaya ve'Eka, shehu mebchinas haKeser. I am b'Pri Etz Chaim Shar Yutes Perik Dalet. So this is the illumination of Shabbos. And as a result of that, the Truas Melech Boy and the, how does the simple meaning of Truas Melech? Truas means the friendship. Rashi translates Truas means friendship. Reus, Molosh Reus. Truas Melech Boy, the friendship of the king is with him. Or Rashi says the word Truas comes from the word Utroyein B'Shevet Barzel, which means crush them, splinter them, with a steel rod. Troyem, Truas Melech means the shattering, the breaking. Lashon Troyem b'Shevet. So what does that mean? So this is the effect that happens as a result of Shabbos. What happens as a result of Shabbos? What happens as a result of Shabbos is an amazing thing. All the judgments of the week, all the dinim are sweetened. All the dinim are sweetened. Sweetened. The judgments are sweetened. Hamtakas adinim. What does that mean? Chas v'sholom, if there wouldn't be Shabbos, the wrath and the anger and the judgment and the intensity of the judgments would get so bad that we wouldn't be able to tolerate life. We know b'chalal in our own life that Shabbos comes and it relaxes us, and then even the stresses that we have during the week like disappear, and you start all over again. Without Shabbos, we would even. But it's also in the heavenly spheres, the stress that the Eibishter, so to speak, has, the Shechina has from dealing with this world until we fix it. It creates a lot of judgments. Shabbos comes and it relaxes everything. All the dinim are gone. Why? So that's an interesting question. The the Alter Rebbe brings it over here in the previous piece. There is a question that is asked. When we talk about Malchus, we talk about king. Is the king on the one hand Melech b'mishpat Yamadar? It's a king is full of mishpat. Mishpat, judgment, harshness, punishment, discipline. On the one hand. But on the other hand, it says in the pasuk, there's a pasuk, it says Or Pnei Melechayim, and the countenance of the king there is life. The king radiates his face and it's showering with kindness. So which king? And the answer is, so it says like this: when the king is not on his throne, when the king gets into this, then he can get a lot of times very tough. But when he goes onto his throne and he's back in his house, and then it's Or Pnei Melechayim. So it says during the weekday when Malchus is descending down in the lower world, she gets very frustrated with the inyanim that happen. There's a lot of dinim. But when it comes Shabbos, and she goes back up in Tatzilas, and she unifies with Melech and higher and higher. So that, what does that cause? That causes that causes that all the dinim dissipate. Which means that if chas v'shalom there has been, which can also mean that if chas v'shalom there is any judgments on a person, it's a good time to daven for the even though Shabbos we don't cry out, that's true. Shabbos umilizik, but Shabbos many things can be dismissed. Shabbos is a time when negativity gets dismissed. Why does the negativity get dismissed? Because Malchus is filled with pleasure, filled with delight. Now, we said that there's two perushim in the word teroyeh. Teroyeh means maloshen reus, friendship. And not teroyeh, truas. Truas means friendship, reus, and it also means crushing. So how do the Alter Rebbe explains that both things go together in one word. Let's read it inside. Truas melech boy loshen teroyeh b'shevet tu amtakas hadinim. V'loshen reus v'chiba. Hainu kamosh hakasev ba'or pnei melechayim. When, what did we say before? There's a yichud on Shabbos between Havaya and Eka. If there's a yichud between Havaya and Eka, but Elokim is also attached to Havaya, so there's a yichud between Eka and Elokim, which means that the lights of Keser are shining in Malchus. Malchus is filled with the Shin, Ayin, Hey, Nahoirin. The 375 lights, those are the lights of Keser. And they are shining where? Into Malchus. So Malchus is full of pleasure and full of delight. And when she's full of pleasure and full of delight, Or Pnei Melechayim. Shezeh Or Pnei Melech, B'chinas ha'aretz panim, and there's no more dinim. But here he doesn't say it, but in the previous mimer he explains it, just on the page before this, and in the other. This reus, this delight that Malchus has, since it truas Melech boy, since on Shabbos, in Yisroel, in the Jew, there is an illumination of the divine pleasure. So that keser de getainug and that pleasure causes hamtakas adinim. So what's the hamtakas? How does hamtakas adinim do? Hamtakas adinim works through shattering the dinim. Hamtakas adinim means the sweetening of the judgments. So the sweetening of the judgments comes about through splintering them into small pieces. So what does that mean? I was thinking about it. How does that mean? Splintering the judgments. It says that during Tkiyah Shofar, that's what we do. Every time we blow Shvarim, pow, 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 trua, these judgments that are coming up, massive judgments, and we splinter them into pieces. So what does that mean? So I had an interesting thought a moment before the share that came into my head that the sweetening of the judgments comes through splintering them, which comes when you're in a state of pleasure. And I have a perfect example for it. It says when Mashiach will come, the Eibishter is going to say to Avram Avinu, your children sinned. And Avram is going to say, okay, if they sinned, do away with them. Hashem is going to say to Yaakov Avinu, your children sinned. And Yaakov Avinu is going to say, if they sin, do away with, do away with them. Then Hashem is going to say, the grandfather and the grandson, they're good for nothing. Let me go speak to them, to Yitzchak. So he goes to speak to Yitzchak, and he says, Yitzchak, your children sinned. So Yitzchak said, first of all, Yitzchak says, they're my children, they're not your children. Hold it. Let's put the record straight. They're your children, they're mine. Then Yitzchak says, how much did they sin already? They sinned. How much does a person live? He lives for 70 years. Okay. You say they sinned as if they're sinning all the time. Half the time they're sleeping. So you can't even count half the time. If they're sleeping, they're not sinning. It's like even your troublemaker kids, when they sleep, they're so cute. Right? So they're sleeping, they're not sinning. So that's half the time. That counts for 35 years. Then he said, no, I'm sorry. He says like this, I'm sorry. 20 years, you don't even count sin. The first 20 years of their life, you don't punish. Fine, so let's erase that. So let's do 50. Then you have 25 years from the rest of the 50 years that they're sleeping. Half they're sleeping. So we have 25 years of sin. Now, in their wakeful hours, you can't say they're sinning all the time because they have to eat and they have to this. And he says the bathroom. He says it's a good to be in the bathroom a long time. See? They go to the bathroom, they eat, they this. And they're, what else does he say? 3 things. They're eating, and davening. That's what he says. So they're doing these things, and that's half the time. So you're left with 12 and a half years. 12 and a half, he says, okay, so let's split it. He says, God, if you can handle all the 12 and a half years, you can handle it yourself. If not, give me, I'll take half, and you take half. And if you think it all has to go upon me, good, I was already a Meiser Nefesh for you. So I already gave my life for you. And that's how Yitzchak is going to save the Jewish people. That's what it says. So what does this say? What? It's a Gemara in Masechtas. It's a Gemara. The Gemara says this story. Like at the end of days, we're going to say to Yitzchak, Ki ata avinu, that after Yitzchak is going to come to the rescue of the Jewish people. And it's an amazing thing because Ein adinim nimtakin ela b'sharsham. Who's going to be mamtik all the dinim? Yitzchak, who is din. Yitzchak, who is din, is going to mamtik all the dinim. So how does it work? Yitzchak is going to fight for us. But how did Yitzchak do it? You see, the Eibishter comes and they sinned. What did Yitzchak do? He broke it into pieces. He broke it into details. When you start breaking it into details, you say, when someone is overwhelmed, I always have this. I get overwhelmed. And someone says, let's tackle the problem. See what's bothering. And you start slicing it into pieces. And then you see this is not so big. This is not such a big. Someone says, I'm drowning in debt. Let's figure it out. That you have this, you have this, you have this. This can be taken care like this, and be taken care. In other words, when you when you break things down to the particles, into the pieces, then what was so so overwhelming and so this is tzebrochen. And when you break the gevudis into pirudim, then it loses its power. The Satan comes on Rosh Hashanah and he brings piles of Avedis, and it's like the Jewish people are so bad. So what we do with the Tkiyas is we start breaking it down. And breaking it down into that kind of a thing that is related to what happens on Shabbos. Since on Shabbos, during the weekday, Malchus is overwhelmed. She's stuck in this world. Shabbos, she rises up in Tatzilas, lights of Kesser. Suddenly, what happens to the Dinim is they're not so, the rebellion is not such a rebellion, and the Avedis is not such a rebellion. Take a look of all the Miftzayim that was done this week. See all the mitzvahs that were done. See all the galis that were done. All of that suddenly, it throws away the klippah suddenly fall off, and all you see, ba'ar pnei melachai. On this, so this is what's going on. And in a yid personally, his own life, you have to be able to figure. You can translate this inyan, this inyan to Fabring with so much ideas of what this means. This idea that on Shabbos, the gevudis become nimtak because of the pleasure, and the way they become nimtak is through Troyim b'shevet barzel, to be broken into pieces. Okay, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to take a little break now. We're going to finish up the end of the mimer soon. So long you lasted? I will show you in class. Bye-bye. Thank you. I gave this mimer. Remember, I learned the same concept. Not the same mind, but the same concept in the long time. No, not this one. We learned the mimer. We learned the mimer. This is the explanation on the mimer. Yeah. I know I can't. There's no way to cut it. That's my problem. I was trying to find out. My wife was wondering why the price today was the one that you gave us seemed to be high.
I need to double check this.
Yeah, she didn't make sense. Okay. But now we need to understand the Mavur Lamai that is explained earlier. Even though Yaakov is lower than Yisroel, Shuzah, which is the Zeir Anpin, nevertheless, Yesh by Mali Yasera Gamkin, there is a greater advantage. We said earlier, like it's explained in the Maimer, Mimana Afra Yaakov, that there is an advantage to Yaakov over Yisroel. We said that there's a quality of Yaakov and a quality of Yisroel. I didn't learn the Maimer Mimana this year. We learned it a long time ago. I didn't get a chance to look it up. But over there he explained that there is a quality in Yaakov over Yisroel. But now that we're saying that the weekday is, now that we're saying over here that the weekday is Yaakov, the B'choilu B'chenas Yaakov, that the weekday is Yaakov, the Shabbos B'chenas Yisroel, and Shabbos were the level of Yisroel, that will create a problem, because that would mean that there is a quality to the weekday that there isn't in Shabbos. See, as long as we're saying stam the two names Yaakov and Yisroel, if we say that Yaakov has a certain quality over Yisroel, okay. Even though Yisroel general is higher, there's nothing wrong with Yaakov having a quality over Yisroel. The problem, however, is once we associate and connect that Shabbos is Yisroel and the weekday is Yaakov, and then we say that Yaakov is higher than Yisroel, that would mean that the weekday is higher than Shabbos, even if it's just a one thing, that we can't say that. He uses the words interesting. Chalila loymar. It's chas v'shalom to say. It's chalila. We can't say. It's God forbid to say. That's what he's saying. Sheyesh b'chenas b'choil, that there is something in the week, ma she'enoi b'Shabbos, that's not on Shabbos chas v'shalom. How can we say that? Omnam be'emes, in truth, loy kosher midi. It's not at all difficult. The mavad, the makom mokom b'chenas zo, l'maylo b'chenas Yaakov b'chla. Aside for the answer that even though you might find one detail that this is greater, but in general, the Zeir Anpin is higher than Yaakov, and therefore Shabbos remains still the superior one over the week. In addition to that, the quality that Yaakov has, by that quality, on Shabbos, Yisroel also gets that quality, as we're going to see soon. In other words, there's a certain inyan in Yisroel, in the idea of being Yisroel, and there's another inyan in being Yaakov. Yaakov is a servant, and Yisroel is a son. And as we're going to see soon, there is a quality to being, usually a son is much higher than a servant. But there's a certain quality that a servant has that a son doesn't have. But on Shabbos, the son that we are on Shabbos is not the son, the ben that we are on Shabbos is not a regular ben, it's not a regular son. It's a son that also has the quality of being a servant. It's both. So therefore, whatever quality Yaakov had over Yisroel, that quality Shabbos has. It's not at all. Yeah, look at this. It says that the Zeir Anpin is rooted even higher than Abba and Ima, even higher than Chachma and Bina. So even though we say that Yaakov has a quality that he's the Yud of Chachma, Kenoida, as it is known, Me'inyan Zabatika Achad Vitalia, that the Ze'er Anpin is hinged in the Atik, in the innermost of Keser. Ach oid zois, but this is the main thing. Ki in a Yisron Mailazu, this quality Shebeb Chenas Yaakov, that Yaakov has. He yoisei mi Yesod Abba, that he comes from the Yesod of Abba. See, what's his problem? The question he has over here, Yisroel, is the level of the Ze'er Anpin itself. Yaakov is the Ze'er Anpin that is being enclosed. It's the Ze'er Anpin being enclosed in Malchus and going down. But we learned earlier that in order for Yaakov to do that, he's rooted in Yesod Abba, which is in the Yesod element of Chachma, which is something that the weekday Jew has and the Shabbos Jew doesn't have. Because Shabbos, it's Ze'er Anpin itself. It's not, you don't have the Yud Ekev, you don't have the Yud. But he says that Gam Bechinezu Mamish Nimtzas b'Shabbos. This literal inyan is there in Shabbos as well, Ze'er Anpin. Because this that we say, because Shabbos is not Ze'er Anpin on its own. What did we say earlier from the Eitz Chaim? That on Shabbos, the Ze'er Anpin rises to the place of Chachma and Bina. If it would be just Ze'er Anpin on your own, so you're right. The Ze'er Anpin is much lower than the Yud Ekev, than the Yud of the Yesod Abba. B'yasas Sharei b'Shabbos oilezah, because the Ze'er Anpin goes up, umalbish, and it encloses la'atzmiyus ha'oros, to the essential lights of Abba of Chachma. Mamish. At shenimtza azah b'madreges Abba mamish. The Ze'er Anpin is on the level of Chachma itself, not just of Yesod Chachma. Yesod Chachma is, as we learned in the beginning of today's class, the element of Chachma as it is exiting. This is the essence of Chachma itself in its place. And he's going to explain it actually, what it means in life. Kaba Musaf to Shabbos. Over there it says, it's talking about the incredible aliyah, the incredible elevation that the Ze'er Anpin has during Shabbos. Nimtza b'Shabbos comes out on Shabbos, yesh beis hamaylas. You have both qualities. Haina b'chinezah, you have Ze'er Anpin, but not just that, kishem malbish, not Ze'er Anpin enclosed in Malchus, but Ze'er Anpin itself. And also, but not stam the Ze'er Anpin, but rather kishem malbish la'atzmiyus Abba mamish. It's enclothing the essence of Chachma itself. Not just the Yesod of Chachma, but the essence of Chachma. And he explains it now. What does it mean in service of Hashem? Biur beis b'chinos elu b'avodas Hashem. The understanding of these bechinos. What does it mean in our service of God? That in the weekday, the Ze'er Anpin is enclosed in Malchus and farther in Ekev, in the heels. That we know, that we spoke earlier. It's the Jew, a holy neshama, coming from the Ze'er Anpin, is lowering himself down to be enclosed in a body, and through the body in the physical world, and involved in the physical world. That we got. Then we learned also there is a Yud there. What does the Yud mean? The Yud is the power of Chachma that the Yid applies to the world in order to do the Biur. Fine. But now he's going to add that there is some other quality to that. What's the other quality? That is that Chachma is bittul. And this work itself of serving for God, doing a service for Hashem, by making this world into a holy place, requires tremendous bittul. Because the nature of the person's neshama is that he doesn't want to deal with the world. He'd rather sit and learn and daven. We had the discussion during the break. He doesn't want to deal. He just wants to be with Hashem the whole day. So it takes a certain nullification and surrender and saying a bittul. And in that sense, it's higher than a child. Because a child is his existence, he's made up of the same stuff of the father. He's very close to the father. But precisely because of that, whatever the father wants him to do, he likes doing. So there is a lacking of bittul, nullification. The highest thing you can do to connection to Hashem is through bittul. And a son is lacking in bittul. The evidence, and therefore there's something interesting. If the prince walks in and he gives over and he says, I think that everybody should wear a red hat today. The prince, the son, the one and only son of the king, says everybody should wear a red hat. So I would suggest everybody wear a red hat. Because probably the king will get upset if people don't listen to his son, if his son was ignored. But do you have to wear a red hat because the prince said so? Not necessarily. The prince is not the king. How about if the king's servant comes out? He's just a regular servant. And he says, everybody must put on a red hat. Then everybody better put on a red hat, because when the king's servant says something, who is saying it? The king is saying it. When the prince says it, it's not the king saying it. It's the prince, because the prince is close to the king. Probably the king would want. But it's not the king. Precisely because he's a somebody, the king doesn't come, unless the king clearly tells the son, go say something. But generally, the son is an entity on its own. The servant is a messenger. He's a nobody, but he's a messenger of the father, of the king. So that's the Hine Noider knows the Yesh Beis Bechinois. There's two elements. Ein Ubchenas Eved, that's being an Eved, Ubchenas Ben, being a son. The Ime Yoiser, even though the Bechlal Ubchenas Ben Gavoya Yoiser. Generally, we say the son is greater. Shua Oived Ma'ava, he's serving out of love. When a Jew is a son, he's serving out of love. Afal Pikei, nevertheless, but B'chenas Echad, there is a certain way. Yesh Maili Yasera Gam Kei B'chenas Eved. An Eved is only serving out of fear, and love is higher than fear. But there is a certain quality to a servant. Shu B'chenas HaBitl. The servant is abnegated. He's not existent. And he's completely, totally beyond his understanding. He just does what the king says because the king said so. So there's more king inside of him than there is in the son. As we also know from the idea, that there is a certain connection between Chachma. In Chachma, it says in the Pasuk, in Chachma, he founded the earth. Chachma is Chachma, Eretz is Malchus. Chachma Yasad Eretz means that the energy of Chachma, which Chachma is Bittul, is to be found in Eretz in Malchus. Now, what does that mean? That when a person serves God as a simple servant because God said so, I don't know, I don't understand anything, that's bittul. That's simple bittul. Kabbalah's Earl Malchus Shemayim, that is connected. The true energy for that is coming from Chachma. Because Chachma, the higher fear, influences the lower fear. The two of them are connected. The yiratata sharshay machachmelah. Even the lowest fear, a Jew does a mitzvah because he's afraid of God. That fear is related to the supernal chachma, even though it's only in the level of. That's why it says that when Aaron comes into the Beis Hamikdash to serve God, he has to come with zos. Zos is malchus. He has to come with kabbalas or Aaron. He's doing the avodah of Yom Kippur. He can't come into the Kodesh HaKadoshim saying, I love you, God, I want to serve you. You come with simple obedience, like a servant. Why? Because dafke in Zos is Malchus, in the service related to the lower hay of God's name that's called Zois, over there, you connect to the highest. That's what Yaakov has an advantage. Shenikra Avdi, he's called my servant. Al Pchenas Yisroel, over the level of Yisroel, Shenikra Ben, that's called the son, because the son doesn't have that. We need to have both. That's why you can't serve Hashem only as a son. Just means you also have to serve Hashem as a servant. However, there is a Zohar in Parshas Balak that says that there is a type of son who is also a servant. Generally, there is a son, and a son has his quality, and a servant has his quality. But there's a unique type of a son who's not stam a son, he's a son, but he's also a servant. Sheyesh beis b'chenas eved, there's two types of eved. Ha'echad b'psuka de zimra. One is when we are an eved during psuka de zimra, during the beginning of davening. So he explains in Zohar like this. In the beginning of davening, when we're saying the verses of song, Baruch Sha'amar, Ashrei, all that, we're a servant. Because we're serving God then with fear. When we get to Kriya Shema, we activate love. Then we're a child. When we get to Shemona Esrei, we're again a servant. We're totally nullified before God. But the servant that the fear, because we're serving God with fear again. But the fear that we attain by Shemona Esrei is a much deeper fear than the fear that we have by Psuka de Zimra. The fear that we have during Psuka de Zimra, the verses of song, is like someone who comes into the palace and he feels like, wow, there's a big king over here. But how does he know the king? Not by knowing the king. He knows the king by seeing all the rooms. He's overtaken by, and then as he goes through, becomes excited. But then when he sees the king, he's totally nullified again. Bittul. So that's the higher fear. That's what the Zohar says. Habez b'shmoyne esrei. Ubein tayim and be in the middle. Who kriya shema is kriya shema. The Inyan, and the idea is, Kamashikasam Makamachar is stated elsewhere. The Inyan daled oisias avaya, and the four letters of the name avaya. Hayud chilu. The yud is fear, is the highest, the higher fear. That's shmona esrei. The hey and the hey, rechimu is love, that's the higher love. And then the vav is the lower love, and then the hey is fear again. So we know that the latter hey and the yud are connected to each other. The isa bekizvi arizal, but it says in kizvi arizal, b'shas psika de zimra tzarech lekayim mitzvahs yiras Hashem. During psika de zimra, we're supposed to fulfill the mitzvah of fearing God. V'inyan yirat ato, that's the lower fear. Shemebchinas hey achron, it comes from the lower hey, the shem havai of shem havai. V'zeu b'chinas eved arishin shebezohar, that's the first servant of Zohar. The first level of eved, fear. Fear, however, an external fear. It's like a person, I'm not in the mood of doing the mitzvah, I don't want to, but I'm pushing myself because I'm surrendering, because I accept myself the yoke of heaven. I have to listen, God is my boss. It's not like a total nullified fear, but it's, that's Yaakov the servant during the weekday. When you're citing the Shema, Kriya Shema and by Kriya Shema itself, you have two levels of love. The blessings of the Shema is the lower love, the Vav, and the Shema itself is the higher love, which is the Hey. V'hafta, that's why you see in the words V'hafta, V'hafta is Gematria 2 times 207. It's Gematria 414. V'hafta is 414, 2 times Oyer, 2 times light. Because it's the 2 levels of love. Light is love, 2 levels of love. So obeys b'chenes rechimo. These are the 2 levels of love. V'ubchenas ben, that's you're acting like a son of Hashem. It's stated in Tanya Perik Mem Dalet b'Shem Areya Mehemna, the kibra, like a child, the rachim line. You love a father, yater megame, even more than yourself. That's why by Kriya Shema you're ready for Mesiras Nefesh, like a child who loves his father more than he loves himself, and he's willing to give his life up. The nafshe, v'zeh inyan lim siras nafshe be'echad, to give yourself up in echad. Look at that Maayon where he explains that the level of child when it's relating to God is much deeper than the level of child in the human experience. In the human experience, a child will love the father, but a child doesn't have to give his life for his father. It's not a halacha. The halacha in Kibud Ava'im means you have to give from your money, but you don't have to give your life. But with God, the Kibud Ava'im, the sense of child to father, is supposed to drive a person even to give his life up for God. So because it's not like a human father. The Afsha ben lamata ein chayav lemesiras nefesh b'shvil aviv avol b'nimshul lamayla yerchay ein sham. So it comes out that during Kriya Shema, when we're calling for mesiras nefesh, b'haftas Hashem b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshecha, it's all from the experience of love of being a child. And afterwards Shmoyne Esrei, zeh b'chedes yirei Allah, you reach the higher fear. That's higher even than the great love, because the great fear, the yud of God's name, the b'chinas ben, because son, the level of son comes from bina. Ben yudke, bina comes from ben yudke, the son of yudke. Mainly it's the ben, the son of, because what do you come to love? From hey, from understanding. Hu b'chinas avarava b'nikra ben yudke. Ach yirei ilah, the higher fear, zehu b'chinas chachmi ilah. That's when one is experiencing the higher chachma, and he reaches total nullification. For Yud Hashem Havai, that's the Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Bei Sharia, the Chilu, over there dwells the higher fear. V'zeu b'chinas Eved HaBeis, this is the second servant. Who is a servant on that level? Who is a servant on that level, called the higher servant? Servant that's nullified to God 100%. Moshe Rabbeinu is also called a servant of God. Moshe Avdi, Moshe my servant. That means Moshe transcended being a child of God. He becomes a servant because the service of God is in the level of Yud, which is Yirei Allah, the higher fear. How about Yaakov? Yaakov is also an Eved. Yaakov Avdi. Yaakov is the lower Eved. Moshe is the higher Eved. Yaakov is the Eved of the Jew, Yud Ekev, the Jew coming down during the week, struggling with the world. He's surrendering to God. He's not nullified, Einoid Mavad, there's nothing but God. Quite on the contrary, he's living in the deception that there is a world and that I am, but I'm surrendering myself. That's Yaakov Avdi. But why is he then connected to a Yud? The Yud isn't the Yud Chachma? The answer is, what did we say earlier? That the higher Chach, the Yud empowers the lower Hey. That all levels of fear are connected to each other. So the lower fear of surrendering to God is connected to the high, deeper fear. What causes a person to surrender to Hashem externally? the fact that deep, deep, deep in the recesses of his soul, in his subconscious, he's totally nullified before God. That's why externally he surrenders. So that's v'Yaakov Yud Ekev Hainu Ha'adam B'chinas Yud, but that's only a ray from the Yud. Zen Nimshach L'B'chinas Ekev comes down to the Ekev. That's the lower level of Eved. Ke'inyan B'chachma Yasad Aretz, like B'chachma. Achim Etzem B'chinas HaYud, the essence of the Yud. Zeh B'chinas Moshe Avdi. This is Moshe, my servant. Look over there. I'm sorry, look elsewhere. It says over there, Al Tikra Banayach, don't read it, son. Elo Bonayach, rather those builders. Chazal say when it says Rav Shalom, there's a lot of peace, Banayach, to your children. It says don't read it your children, read it your builders. So what does it mean, builders? That means Talmidei Chachamim that build the world. But hold it. Is there anything higher than being a son? And their answer is yeah. Because the son is the levels of love. Higher than son is Eved, but not the lower Eved, the higher Eved. The Eved of Bittul B'Metzias, Yirei Allah, the higher fear, Moshe Avdi. And those are Talmidei Chachamim, because real Talmidei Chachamim, those that are receiving from Chachma. What do they call Talmud Chacham? They're receiving from Chachma. This level of learning Torah with Yirei Allah, with the higher fear. Those people who learn Torah in the level of Bittul. And now we'll understand why Shabbos includes in it the quality of Yaakov Avdi. B'chinas Yisroel shenikra ben, but not a regular ben. Ach shehu gam came b'chinas Eved. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is also called the son of God. He's a son. The Rei Mahemner says about Moshe Rabbeinu, he's like a child who is Moser, who gives his life, his body for his father. So Moshe is a ben. The chiddush of Moshe is that he's not only a ben, he's also an Eved. Ach shehu gam came b'chinas Eved. He's also an Eved. He's the level of what it says in Tanya, that there is a ben that's also called an Eved. This is the level of Moshe Avdi. The Shabbos. That's why on Shachris of Shabbos, when Yisroel, what did we say earlier? Yisroel, the level of Ze'er Anpin rises to Abba Ve'ima. That means that the love of the Ze'er Anpin is love, rises to Bittul, to Chachma. It rises to Chachma. Then we say Yismach Moshe, because that's the level of Moshe. B'matnas Chelke, Moshe should delight, because that's the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And what do we say? Ki Eved Nemon Karasala. You called him an Eved Nemon. This is not a regular Eved. This is not the low level of Eved, Yaakov Avdi. This is the quality of, this is the higher Eved. This is Eved Nemon. V'ushe B'chinas Ben Mis'ala Liyaz Gam came B'chinas Madreges Eved. The Ben goes up to be an Eved. What's the quality of that service? Quality of that service is you have total bittul, but you also have total simcha. You see, if you're a stranger and you're an Eved, it bothers you because you have to surrender to your master. But if you're a son that becomes a servant, so then you have delight in the bittul. You have both, as he explains. V'zeu b'chinas Eved Nemon v'u inyan shezah nikra ben yudkei. Zoh, which is Ben Yuki, Malbish, it encloses Atzmius, Oiris, Abba. It rises from the level of Bina, which makes it into a Ben, and it goes up to the level of Abba, of Bittul B'Metzias. Shu Yirei Allah, which is the higher Yira. The Yirei Allah, Zu Klula Gamkin Ima Simcha. Now this Yira also has joy, because it has the Ben element. All hearts will fear you. They will sing to you. And that can only be on an Eved who's also a Ben. So Shabbos we can experience the deepest fear and the deepest joy at the same time. Rejoicing in the fear. Similar to what is discussed in many Memorim in regards to Simchas Torah. Shmini Atzeres is discussed with this Madrega. V'zeu Yismach Moshe. Moshe rejoices. Ki Eved Neman. It's Yismach. Even though it's an Eved, it's Yismach. He's rejoicing. That's the emphasis. Yismach Moshe. Ben, that's Pchinas Eved. That type of simcha you can't have when you're doing that when you're in the level of Yaakov. Yaakov, it's toil, it's hard, it's fear, it's that in it. When you get to the level of Yisroel on Shabbos, then you have simcha. But then you lose the ben, then you lose the bittul. The real element is when Shabbos itself elevates to the highest. When the Ze'er Anpin elevates into Chachma, then you have the Mila of both. Yesh ben shu b'chinas evet gamkin. I never understood what it means in Tanya over there, like it's explained elsewhere. Where is it explained? It's the first time I came across it, at least that I remember, in this Maimer. Ben shehu b'chinas evet. I'm the Ramaschal v'daita yoyim amshkos the Ramaschal v'ela shmois b'nei Yisroel. Chuldu, where he speaks over there about the various different levels of Yisroel, in the name Yisroel, that there's different madregas and the like. Look over there in the end of Shmois. I picked over there, but I didn't really get a chance to look well. All right.